Last time out at Zolder, it was all about managing tyres in the second round of the championship. The field was pretty much split half and half between those starting on wets and those starting on dries. It was a very courageous move around the outside at turn 1 for the Mercedes. Didn't quite come off for him though, and the GT1 racing team BMW led the way. Marc Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock making their way up through the field before Marcus decided that the wets weren't working out for him and he came into the pits. Maxime Martin was absolutely flying up at the front. He moved his way into the lead while there were great dices behind. Matt Halliday having a little bit of contact with Thomas Jaeger. This, though, was the key moment of the race. Matt Halliday coming in and handing over to Mike Parisi, putting slick tyres on the Porsche, doing so earlier than the rest of the field. This allowed them to get their tyre temperature up higher than the rest as they struggled on slick tyres. Mike Parisi making 2 moves down 1 straight. Such was the impressive performance of the Porsche. He then moved past Alexei Vasiliev, who'd taken over from Maxime Martin, meaning that only the number 3 Ferrari stood between him and the lead. Other cars were struggling with their slick tyres, Nicky Pastorelli having a small spin at the exit of turn 1. The number 3 Ferrari got out of the pits fairly quickly, but their pit stop was a lot later in the race, and as a result their tyres were not up to temperature. Mike Parisi under-braking into turn 9, making the move stick and retaking the lead of the race. The Ferrari would take a couple more laps to get his tyres up to temperature. You can see how much he was struggling on the slicks. There were great battles throughout the field. Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff closing in on Enzo Ide, managed to get the overlap and make the move stick. This, though, summed up the WRT weekend. Stefan Ortelli hitting the back of Oliver Jarvis, and the double winners from Nogaro were sent spinning down the field. No one could catch Mike Parisi, though, and he took the win for himself and Matt Halliday and the Team Exim Bank China Porsche squad, much to their delight, and it moved them up into 2nd position in the championship. The 3rd round of the season takes place here at Navarra. Let's have a look at who's competing this weekend. Engine troubles for the number 6 Aston Martin of Andreas Zuber and Sergei Afanasiev mean they won't have had as much running as they would have liked this weekend. Maxime Martin is going to be joined by newcomer to GT1, Leo Machitsky.
Quite excited to be back in an Aston. Love the car, love the Pro Drive. Obviously had a big part to do with putting Team Russia together as well. Fair bit of pressure to not let Maxime down. I hope that I can live up to my own expectations and also the expectations of the team.
After winning round 1 in Nogaro, Stefan Ortelli and Laurens Vanthoor still lead the Drivers' Championship, but a difficult weekend in Zolder means they're going to have their work cut out if they want to retain it here. Frank Stippler is hoping that they have learnt their lessons from the difficult weekend communication-wise at Zolder. He partnering the 33 car with Oliver Jarvis.
Well, we had some meetings, we're talking about these things happened in Zolder, and I hope that we are in a good mood here to strike back.
The GT1 racing team got their season back on track in Zolder with a win in the qualifying race for the 18 car of Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman. Their teammates Matthias Lauda and Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff struggled a little bit, but Nicky is confident that the team has what it takes to get back towards the front of the field.
This weekend we have some catching up to do, and for us it was difficult weekends, the 1st and 2nd, but now we're fighting for the podium again. I think we get more and more to understand the car, and the team is working great, and we're really fighting, and I have good memories from last year, so I hope we can wrap it up and get some valuable points.
Since taking pole in the opening qualifying session of the season, the AF Corsa squad have struggled a little bit with their Ferrari 458. But Philippe Salaquada reckons that this hot weekend in Navarra will be just what it needs to get the squad back on track.
We should be quite fine in this condition. We hope it's not going to rain, because the Ferrari, on the dry conditions like this, it should be an advantage for us a little bit. They also changed some BOP, some less weight for us, so it should help. Hopefully we should be strong in qualifying, and our aim is to score on podium.
Sunred Racing are continuing to get to grips with their Ford GT. Matteo Cressoni and Milos Pavlovic at the wheel once again this weekend. And as team manager Joe Honoris says, there's still plenty more pace to come from this Ford GT.
We are here and we are improving as much as possible our car at this moment, and hope the second car will be ready for Algarve, and then the second car can enjoy with us the overseas races. So I hope really in Algarve we can have 2 cars on the track.
Fittingly for a circuit just outside of Pamplona, the raging bulls of Lamborghini have been unstoppable here in recent years. The past two FIA GT1 races have been won by a Lamborghini, and this gives Peter Cox a great deal of confidence.
I think the Lamborghini is going to be very strong. Already in the first year we were with the GT1 car, the Murcielago, the old style GT1 cars, the cars that were competitive. And I think also the Gallardo we saw from last year's in Blancpain series. The car should be competitive, and the weather forecast is quite good, so it should be okay. We look forward to it.
Hexes are continuing to make progress with their McLaren MP4 12Cs, finishing first and second in Friday morning's practice session here in Navarra. And like the AF Corsa squad, Alvaro Parente is looking for a dry weekend to really get the maximum out of the car.
I'm really looking forward for this weekend. Hopefully we'll have a dry weekend all the time, just for us to see how the car and the setup and the work we've been doing on the car is going to be useful to us on the track, and see how our pace is and how competitive we are.
The Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes-Benzes were unlucky to a degree in Zolder. Marc Basseng and Markus Winkelhock were leading the qualifying race when their throttle broke with only a few minutes to go. But the sister car of Nicky Pastorelli and Thomas Jaeger performed strongly, and they come into this weekend third place in the championship. Thomas Jaeger is looking for that form to continue this weekend.
Well, this weekend we hope to score points as the last weekends. I think that's the key for the championship. And yeah, we're well prepared, so hopefully everything works this weekend.
There's no Ren Wei this weekend in the Exim Bank Team China Porsche, his seat being taken by Dino Lunardi, the reigning ADAC GT Masters champion. And in the sister car, Mike Parisi is excited for this weekend, having won the last race.
It was a great weekend in Zolder because it was our first victory for Team China, Exim Bank Team China, for Porsche, for the Müllner team, for us drivers. So it was a very good experience. I think we can be very fast on several parts, and we hope for sure to repeat again here in Spain this weekend.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Navarra. It's the qualifying race for the third round of the 2012 FIA GT1 World Championship. And as I say, it's a dusk setting here, and that should provide us with a spectacular view for what will be a 1 hour race. We've already had some drama. The second place car joining the front row Reiter Engineering car has already been pushed to the exit of the pit lane. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me here in the commentary box is John Watson. So the qualifying race for the third round of the championship about to get underway. It's going to be the Raging Bull just south of Pamplona that is on pole position. It's going to be alone on the front row, Darrell Young. The second row is Nicky Mermelnoff and Mike Parisi. We wait for the lights to go green. Very, very tidy formation here from GT1. And away we go. Stunning start from the Ford GT. Cutting to the inside line immediately. Darrell Young has struggled. Mike Parisi's coming up on the outside in the Porsche. But the Ford GT is going to take the lead, is it, as they all try and squeeze their way through turns 1 and 2. Parisi holds it. There's contact. They both get out of shape. The McLaren is through. Up the inside, Alvaro Parente leads this race. Somehow, the Lamborghini has managed to recover up into second place. What an action-packed first couple of corners. Big winner was the Porsche, one of the Mercedes being pushed wide. What a storming start from the Ford GT.
Did nobody tell these guys this is an hour-long race? That was just aggression. But Milos Pavlovich there, you can see the Ford just ahead now of the Audi, and he was very aggressive, very forceful indeed, trying to put us the Ford up the inside. But he got a stunning start. Two Audis side by side. We saw Frank Stippler talking about driving within the same team, and Stippler and the sister Audi side by side, banging door handles into turn 8.
And they of course collided last time out at Zolder. Sending one up the inside there is the number 3 car of Philippe Salaquada. He's battling hard with Nicky Mermelnoff. Mermelnoff has the inside line. Salaquada will send it up the inside into the left-hander at turn 11. Mermelnoff gives him racing room and manages to hang it on around the outside. Surely he can't do it again into the next left-hander. Yes, he can. He's going out off the racing circuit. That's going to be an interesting one for the stewards to discuss. Milos Pavlovich still looking racy in there as well. Good start from Markus Winkelhock, actually. He's climbed well up the field after a difficult qualifying for the Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes, but Nicky Melnoff is backing the field up. This is allowing the race leaders to absolutely spring clear. So, across the line they come. McLaren leads in Alvaro Parente. Second is Darrell Young. It's everyone else for third position. The Ford GT is having to fend off the attack from the Mercedes.
I know it's not, it's just taking the attack. It's past both of them. It's trying to go round again. The Mercedes coming up the inside into turn one. And Pavlovich, it seems that the Ford GT has had a resurgence, not in just in handling, but in straight line performance. It just pulled out alongside the two SLS Mercedes-Benz and passed them as if they weren't there. McLaren running very wide on the outside of turn four.
Oh, one of the Porsches on the inside line. That looked like it was Dino Lunardi being forced onto the grass. He manages to survive. Great start from Steph Dusseldorf up into 11th place in that second Hexus McLaren. So we've got McLaren leading McLaren in 11th position. We go on board. Look at this brilliant view. On board with Marcus Winkelhock, looking back at Thomas Jaeger. He's flashing his lights at him, saying, "I'm quicker than you, teammate. Why don't you let me pass?" But I'd be surprised if Marcus yields to that threat. This is one of the best views that I have ever seen in motor racing, because you have just got him. Oh, he's gone a little bit wide there. No, just differing lines into turn one, through turn two as well.
Yeah, I think that there was just an option of taking a late entry or an early entry into turn two, and that was just to try and get track position.
Out of the final corner they come, and one of those Mercedes, Marcus Winkelhock, not coping with that corner very well, and that allows the Porsche to get alongside. We know the Porsche is strong in a straight line, and Mike Parisi moves up into 7th position. He's having to go defensive now because we're on board with Steph Dusseldorf, who also has got past the Mercedes, so 2 positions lost, all from an error at the final corner from Marcus Winkelhock. Is he going to send one up the inside into turn 3? No, he's not. So that moves Parisi in the Porsche up to 7th, and Dusseldorf in the McLaren up to 8th.
Watch Steph Dusseldorf coming down into turn 5. He's not going to make it past there. He may think about going up the inside into turn 6. Exactly, that's what I was about to say. I thought that the McLaren might find a slot up the inside, more grip than the Porsche, and fundamentally a more competitive car. And that's what Steph Dusseldorf did. It was aided by the fact that Mike Parisi got a little bit out of shape, but that's what I was waiting to see happen. Yep. Thank you very much. That was a good job, Steph Dusseldorf.
Here comes Jelmer Berman sending one up the inside of Enzo Ede. Ede gets the cutback, and Jelmer really needed to get the car stopped in time a little bit. Cars 8 and 24, so that's Dino Lunardi and Albert von Turnen Taxis are under investigation for the start. There was quite a heated debate actually in the driver's briefing.
Look at the Ford, the way the Ford left out to the right. Unbelievable start from Pavlovich.
Yeah, he got to the inside line very, very quickly when the lights went green, and then, well, he was just over-optimistic, really. I don't think he was alongside Parisi, and then there was a bit of contact, actually, between Young and Pavlovich as he tried to come back, but all safely through turn 3, which was good to see. This is looking back, I think, from Mike Parisi, so we're going to see. Oh, this will be a great view, actually, because the Ford is there on the inside. He's still going to try and stick it up the inside into turn 2. There's going to be a bit of contact. There it is. Parisi does well to hold it, really.
If you ever want an example of winning a race in the first corner or losing a race in the first corner, that's about it. Nevertheless, back is the McLaren got ahead of the...
Yes, yeah. So that means that Steph Dusseldorf has got past Thomas Jaeger then, and is up into 6th position from the back of the grid. Good work indeed from the McLaren.
Bodywork on the McLaren is detaching. The left front part of the bodywork has detached from the McLaren.
But here he comes looking to the inside on the run down into turn 1. There's nothing between them. He's now got the overlap. We go on board and into turn 1. Steph Dusseldorf is going to move up into 5th position. Ferrari versus McLaren. This is what we've wanted to see. We're on board with the McLaren. He's on the outside on the run down into turn 1. He's going to try and stick it around the outside, and he's done it. Fantastic stuff. There's nothing Philippe Salaquada could do about that. But what a great move from Steph Dusseldorf. That was bravery. Ford goes wide, and he's lost 2. Oh, that's a real shame. That is, it's a definite problem for the Ford GT. Here we go, Steph Dusseldorf's got a great run on the Lamborghini. He looks to the inside, Lamborghini comes across, but Darrell Young doesn't cover the move in time, and Steph Dusseldorf glides through up the inside. McLaren first, McLaren second. Peter Cox shakes his head.
Darrell Young was never going to put a hard move on Steph Dusseldorf. It's not within the nature of the driver.
Oh, they're streaming into the pits then at the earliest possible opportunity. There you can see Matthias Lauda. He's going to be taking over that BMW.
Oh, and look at that. He's unhappy. He's unhappy.
Not well. He's lost a lot of. They've lost a lot of places. They came into the pits in a net 4th place, wasn't it? But they're now behind.
Ferrari pit stop. What's going on there?
They're now behind the Ferrari. They're now behind the Lamborghini, as we saw. So that is not a good pit stop. Into the pits comes Steph Dusseldorf. He's going to be handing over to Fred Makovicky, and I expect Fred Makovicky to be something close to rapid in this McLaren when he gets in it. So we've got a couple of cars in the pits, as you can see. Out of the pits goes Fred Makovicky, then, who was taken over. This might work out for Mike Parisi, because all of a sudden he's got some clear air, and he may be able to use that clear air to leapfrog the Mercedes. The problem Mullner have, who are running the ex-Bank Team China, is they're used to endurance racing, so their pit stops aren't necessarily as slick as those of Audi or Hexis. And well, here comes one of the Audis down the pit lane. Let's see where he comes out. All of this actually has promoted the 37 car of Nicky Pastorelli. He's now in front of Peter Cox, so I'm not quite sure. Finally, Jelmer Berman is through, up the inside, getting past the 33 car of Frank Stippler, and Jelmer Berman, the move he's been trying to make for the first half an hour of this race, has finally come off, and he'll probably come into the pits in a minute.
He's got 5.5 minutes in which he can stay legitimately out on track. They're all over doing the job of traffic cop.
So it's all gone a bit quiet here on the pit straight, because the main pack are going to be coming towards us shortly. As into the pits comes Albert von Turn Taxis to hand over to Thomas Enger. This is looking like a fairly slick pit stop. There's the drive-through, or is that the drive-through penalty? No, it is the changeover now. Albert von Turn Taxis to Thomas Enger. So across the line then comes our net 2nd place car, which is the McLaren. Out goes the Audi. This might work out pretty well actually for the Audi, because if we look at the start-finish straight, roaring through is Mark Basseng. So I think Mark Basseng is now in a net 3rd place. Net 4th is going to be his teammate, who's coming under pressure. Then 5th place is going to be Peter Cox. 6th is going to this Ferrari, and it's 7th place. I think we'll have to wait till it all shakes out, but that'll be my prediction. 7th place for Oliver Jarvis, although we've still got Mike Parisi and Jelmer Berman to pit as well. So when the pit stop window is fully closed, we'll give you a full rundown of exactly what's going on. Here comes the Lamborghini then, attacking to the outside. Nicky Pastorelli, the 29-year-old from The Hague in the Netherlands, is going very defensive towards the inside. The Mercedes has been a bit dodgy through there. Sparks flying as the car bottoms out on the inside curb. Surely the cutback here for Peter Cox. Can't quite get it through enough, but what a great battle.
Lead car is now in.
So Alvaro Parent handing over to Gregoire de Moustier. There you can see Parent with his Portuguese colours on his helmet. And this kind of lap times from Fred Makovicky could well see him. I don't think he's quite going to have the pace to leapfrog him, but he's certainly going to have closed in. Surely, allez is the shout from the Hexis team.
Did they change only on the left side tyre?
I think they changed all the tyres. I'm not. It may have just been the angle we saw at. Also in, Mike Parisi handing over to Matt Halliday. That's going to be very interesting to see where they come out. I tell you what, there is Fred Makovicky then, and he exits the final corner now. So there is the gap between our 2 race leaders, the 2 McLarens. And Makovicky on this lap comes across the line. 1 minute 38.7 last time, 1 minute 38.7 again. That's the consistency of a driver like Fred Makovicky. He has only got 5 or 6 seconds to close in. It's been a decent stint from Jelmer Berman as he comes into the pits, and he has well, his last lap was a 40.2, so he's had some decent pace actually, Jelmer Berman. This could be a good effort for them as they change all 4 tyres. McLaren is just coming out of the final corner, so it's not going to be 1st or 2nd for the BMW, but he's going to be in the mix for kind of 4th, 5th and 6th places, I'd have thought. He comes down the pit lane, so he's in 3rd place. He might be able to hang on to this 3rd position, you know, because I can't see anyone coming out of the final corner just yet. There's the Mercedes. Mark Basseng, he's going to be on it with hot tyres. This is going to be pretty close, but whatever happens, this has been a storming drive. Out of the pits he comes, and he's not going to hold it. Basseng, or is he?
Oh, he is.
It's going to be very, very close,
no, he's going to make it.
But Basseng will have the speed. Basseng will have the speed into here he goes, outside of turn 2. The Mercedes have been struggling here all weekend, and Berman has just about held on for the time being.
Well, Michael Bartels might be holding on as well.
Yes, Michael Bartels, sorry, who has, of course, just taken over that BMW. But here comes the battle again. Peter Cox wider on the entry every time. I don't know whether it's Pastorelli going defensive, but he never gets a very good drive out. He's going to squeeze Peter Cox against the pit wall, side by side on the run down into turn 1, and they're pretty much matched for straight line speed, but Peter Cox is going to have track position. Pastorelli might try and be brave, or he might try and get the cutback. Let's see as he comes into turn 2. He's not going to be close enough, so Peter Cox, good move, got the best exit out of the final corner, and he's up into 5th place.
And you can see the drive that Peter Cox got off turn 15. He just mothered the Mercedes in terms of acceleration, that initial acceleration.
Across the line, though, comes Tony Verlander in that red A, of course, of Ferrari. We go on board with him as he chases down the Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes. Thought he might fancy a look here because we know the Mercedes is very, very difficult to drive through that turns 1 and 2 and 3 complex. Gets the comeback to the inside. This is going to be a brave one if he's ended up the inside. Oh, I think Pastorelli saw him coming.
Pastorelli had to run wide. I mean, there was never an objective, or whatever you want to describe it, overtaking opportunity. But you can see again in turn 2 into turn 3. Makovic is the quicker of the two drivers in these McLarens. Again, it's going to be either a very simple pass.
So into the left-hander at turn 5 they come.
I mean, just asking the question is, why is Fred Makovic quicker? He just fundamentally is a quicker driver. He just has got more ability. He understands motor racing more. He brakes there. You can see him marginally later. He gets on the throttle certainly as quick as the lead car does. The lead car is pulling over to the right, whether it's in defence or it's saying, look, I don't want the pressure. Let me go. Well, there. Well,
yeah, so
that wasn't a pass. That was a gift.
Through into the lead of the race.
Maybe it's Fred Makavic's birthday today, or maybe it's Steph Dussel's birthday. That was a gift.
Now you can see the Lamborghini starting to get closer. The bull run is on down into turn 1. He looks to the outside.
Yeah,
is he going to be able to stick it around the outside? No, he's not. Cut back into turn 3 is the possibility. Not quite yet. On board again we go with Marc Basseng. He's got out of shape. Is this going to be the chance for the Lamborghini up the inside into turn 6? Peter Cox sends it up the inside, almost contact, but he's through, up into 4th position.
There's nothing almost about it. There was. I mean, it was very light contact, but nonetheless. But that's motor racing. I've got no problem with that because the error came from Basseng, and he offered up the opportunity to Peter Cox, and he tried to shut the door, but he tried to shut it when it was too late as a consequence of that very, very small little error.
So that means that up into 4th place goes the Lamborghini Gallardo of Peter Cox. The Mercedes are now running 5th and 6th in the hands of Marc Basseng and Nicky Pastorelli. Does Daryl Young look pleased? Yes, he does.
Oh, side by side.
Oh, this
Lauda
is
trying to get past Tony Verlander, and Lauda using the opportunity that has been offered up to him, and that's all. And look how far back Verlander has fallen from Nicky Pastorelli.
What is this, a 5-way train, isn't it? Over 7th position, so crucial positions for qualifying. Late move from Stefan Ortelli. Nearly got the clout in on Oliver Jarvis again. That could compromise. Well,
and now Halliday's got the benefit of all that. Yeah, he's got ahead of Ortelli on the run out of turn 15.
But watch Oliver Jarvis. Is he going to attack Matthias Lauda into the first corner? No, he didn't quite get as good a run as I thought he may have done. Into turn 1 they come. The gap between 3rd and 4th is now down to just 1 second with 6 minutes to go. So it's halved in the space of 2 laps.
As they say in tennis. Or golf. Or whatever.
Motor racing today. So
somebody's had a massive, they've taken a load of dust, dirt on the inside of the track. It's been cast across the exit of turn 4, but look into turn 7.
That's where Lauda tried to get the job done last time. Verlander covered it, and he is absolutely driving that car like a bus, isn't he? He's using all his experience to stop Lauda getting the overlap. Here it comes, up the inside.
But Jarvis is the winner.
He's going to take them both. 3 abreast on the run down the back straight. There's not enough room for Verlander to get onto the circuit. Their tyres are interlocked. The smoke comes up. 3 wide going down into the hairpin. A little bit of contact. I don't think Jarvis knew Verlander was on the outside. Matt Halliday tries to force his way through on the inside. He gets past Verlander. Matthias Lauda is the big winner. He has that 7th place.
And look at Halliday as well, trying to find a way around that. Jarvis, I mean, it's just madness. That and Tony Verlander, he's trying to come back. There's been so much contact. I mean, this is like come dancing.
Look at this. I mean, this is what I mean. Only Lauda knew that I think there were 3 abreast, because look, Jarvis starts to come across not knowing that Verlander's there.
Absolutely, and of course Matt Halliday's watching all this thing, and lovely jubbly, bring it on. And again, it's Lauda who comes out of this a winner. He's the one that, of the 4 cars, makes the break out of turn 9 and has the consolidation into turn 10. There we see the battle still going on. Oliver Jarvis trying all he can. Oh, I beg your pardon, Ortelli as it is. That's Matt Halliday.
Yeah, so all of a sudden Ortelli...
Halliday's going to get the run. Is he going to get the run out of turn 13? No, he wasn't sufficiently far up. But the Porsche may well yet put Stefano Ortelli's race into jeopardy. Ortelli currently in 11th place.
Yeah, so...
In fact, he's in 10th place because Halliday was 10th going across the line the last time. So somewhere or other, Ortelli has got ahead of Matt Halliday. Yeah, one lap ago was the opposite way around.
Here we're seeing Verlander, and there's going to be a bit of a kiss.
Well, that's where the damage to the Porsche came
and this is where Ortelli
got through.
Right,
into turn 11.
Okay, so that must have either taken place on the screen whilst I was looking at my notes, or we did. Well, it's all kicking off again. So now Stefano Ortelli has managed to get past Tony Verlander and is now up into 9th position. Now, can Matt Halliday make his way past the AF Corsa Ferrari as well? That's going to be the interesting thing to see. Fred McAvicky through the left-hander at turn 12, then up towards the right-hander at turn 13, the hairpin. This car was fairly new. It's new to GT1 this year, but the McLaren MP412C looks like it's finally going to win a race. It's struggled so far this year in GT1. It's had its issues in other endurance series, but Fred McAvicky turns through turn 15, the final corner here at Navarra. The qualifying race win is going to go the way of Hex's McLaren. Hex is his first win since last season. Fred McAvicky takes the checker flag with Steph Dusseldorp from the back of the grid. Second place going the way of Gregoire de Moustier and Alvaro Parente. Fantastic stuff.
And it's the first time a McLaren race car outside of a Grand Prix car has won an international FIA World Championship event since the days of the McLaren F1 LMs that raced in the early 90s at Le Mans and other great sports car races.
Third place goes the way of Jelmer Berman and Michael Bartels. They seem satisfied with that. Fourth, Peter Cox and Darrell O'Young after starting on pole. Perhaps a bit of disappointment. First win for Hexis in GT1 since the championship race at the Sachsenring last year. That was round 4 of the championship. They went on to win the constructors' title, but not very often did they taste success on the top step of the podium.
No, and I mean, a great job by the whole Hexis team. They have really, really worked tirelessly. And also, I'd say, welcome to Philippe Demar and the entire Hexis team to the McLaren family club. That is a club of winning drivers and team members.
Let's hear from our race winners, Fred McAvicky and Steph Dusseldorp with Haley.
Congratulations, Fred. Finally a win for you.
Yeah, it's fantastic for the team. They work really, really hard, and it's fantastic after the difficult qualify. My teammate did an amazing job during the stint, and we're coming back, and fantastic, really fantastic.
And Steph, what a stint by yourself. It's so exciting to watch. How is it for you racing on the track today?
Really fun. Yeah, what Fred said, we had some problems in qualifying, but we knew we had the speed, and I had a good start. We just had to be safe and not push too much, and I survived the first 2 laps, and after it was just easy going, and yeah, it was really, really fun, and I'm really happy with the result. We worked really hard, and I'm happy we could make the first GT1 World victory for McLaren.
Let's have a look at the results. A McLaren 1-2, Fred McAvicky and Steph Dusseldorp, Gregoire de Moustier and Alvaro Parente. The BMW team completing the podium, Team Vita for One Racing. The Lamborghini Gallardo finishing in 4th place, Peter Cox and Darrell O'Young, as I say. Good driving from them. Mark Bassang and Marcus Fingelhock in 5th, ahead of their teammates Nicky Pastorelli and Thomas Jaeger. They had an action-packed race. Well, an action-packed race goes for the rest of the field, and the rest of the names I'm about to read out. Oliver Jarvis just holding off teammate Stefan Ortelli towards the end. Tony Verlander 10th, Halliday 11th. Thomas Enger almost getting back into it. Car number 3 is under investigation, we're being told. That's Tony Verlander. Not 100% sure what that's through for, but we'll let you know. Francesco Castellacci in 13th place. Martin and Zuber, disappointing day for the Aston Martins. Not 100% sure what went wrong there, because they had the pace, but we'll find out in the aftermath of this race, no doubt. the sun begins to set here at Navarra, and this means that this is the difference in the championship points. We've now got 3 driver pairings on 31 points. Bartel's, Halliday and Jaeger's cars all together at the top of the standings. Good afternoon and welcome to the championship race for the 3rd round of this 2012 GT1 season. It's an hour-long championship race where the winning driver will get 25 points towards their championship quest. We're here at the beautiful Navarra circuit in northern Spain. John, it's been a glorious day so far.
Well, it's cracking morning, clear as gin. There's a couple of clouds bubbling over the horizon now. But what have we got on prospect here this afternoon for the championship race? Temperatures 35 on the track, 23 in the pit lane. Well, down on yesterday. But what we saw yesterday was a little bit of history being made. We saw the 2 Hexes McLaren MP412s dominate, in spite of some setbacks, but dominate the qualifying race in GT1.
And it was their first win in international motorsport for that McLaren MPC12. Here's a look at the Navarra circuit. It's 15 corners. Pretty interesting to overtake on. It depends where you can get a good run on your rival, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, it's all about taking the parts of the racetrack where you're strong. Primarily, it's easier to get it done up from start finish straight through sector 1 to midway through sector 2. That's at the end of the back straight into turn 9. Thereafter, the racetrack gets quite twiddly and difficult to overtake. You lose momentum very easily, and it's easy to defend. We saw a great defence, for example, coming in the GT3 race here this morning, the first of the 2 events, where Stefano Guy basically held up the field for the best part of half the race.
He certainly did. So our race winners in Nogaro, the first time out, still lead the championship, Stefano Telli and Laurence Vanthor. But they've got a 10-point margin over a lot of drivers. Michael Bartels and Jelmer Berman finished the race 3rd yesterday. Matt Halliday and Mike Parisi and Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli all running on the same amount of points in 2nd, 3rd and 4th places in the championship. So Ortelli and Vanthor, despite not being on the podium since that first race in Nogaro, are still heading the championship. For WRT, that means that they are too in a very, very strong position as far as the team's championship is concerned, because with their drivers in 1st and 5th positions, it means they have a nice haul of points, and as a result are still topping the championship. There you can see Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT, with 66 points. Alinkel Munich Motorsports in 2nd, Hexis Racing 3rd, AF Corsa in 4th position. V1 Racing Team starting to get their act together in 5th, 6th and 7th. Ryder Engineering will be disappointed because the Lamborghinis have been very, very strong this weekend, haven't they?
Yes, I mean, they've been a very, in particular, Thomas Enger was quickest this morning in the driver's warm-up. He did a 1:38.6 and re-established the pace of that car ahead of the race-winning McLaren of Fred Makowiecki and Stef Dusseldorp. So indications that if the Lamborghini can find track position, unfortunately they're going to start back down in the 6th row of the grid with Thomas Enger and Von Thun and Taxis alongside Albert Von Thun and Taxis. So they'll have a big job to do here this afternoon.
Yeah, it'll be tough for them. It's good to see the Ford GT is out on the grid. We just saw them at the back there, Matteo Cressoni and Milos Pavlovic getting in the car. There's Benjamin Lariche. He's going to be starting in 16th position on the grid. Dino Nenardi giving a little, yeah, come on, my fellow Frenchman, let's have this. So Benjamin Lariche is going to be starting that car. And just in front of him on the grid is going to be 15th place for the number 6 Valmont Racing Team Russia car, Andres Zuber, hopping in, and he will hand over to Sergei Afanasiev. The Astons unfortunately had the pace yesterday, but it didn't really work out for them in the race. The number 7 car, which will be starting just in front of them in 14th place on the grid, unfortunately got tapped into a spin in the early laps by the Ferrari of Enzo Eads, and as a result the 2 Astons were left a long way adrift at the back of the pack and forced to come through. So we hardly saw them, but Max Martin starting that Aston, we know how strongly he started in the championship race in Zolder.
Yes, and Max Martin will always be competitive regardless of whichever car he's in, and he will drag that Aston Martin from its start position all the way up to as far as it's capable to go. But it again, back on the 7th row of the grid, it's a big ask. But it's a 1-hour race. Temperatures probably a little bit cooler than they were. No, a little bit, higher than they were for last evening's race. Track temperature 35 Celsius, ambient 23. So it'll be interesting to see if those Astons can avoid being tagged, where particularly the Max Martin car can end up.
There are two Germans having a little hello. Nicky Meermanov on the left, Albert von Turnentaxis on the right. Von Turnentaxis is going to be piloting that Lamborghini. Hello, chaps. And but it'll be Thomas Enger starting that car. And he was feeling pretty racy, actually. I was chatting to him this morning, and he was saying, yeah, I can definitely make up a lot of positions at the start. He set the second fastest lap of the race in yesterday's qualifying race once he came through from the back of the field. They've struggled with seat time because Thomas Enger did the main running in the first free practice session. Then in the second free practice session it was meant to be Albert von Turnentaxis, but they had gearbox issues, which meant Albert had hardly any running at all. So as a result, he went into yesterday's qualifying race, started the race pretty much blind on track experience.
Yeah, and that's, track time here is valuable, and not to get it, it's a problem.
So let's hear from Roberto Jimenez. He is the vice president of Navarra, and he's with Michel Leganet of the circuit. Haley Coxon is down with both of them here on the grid.
Mr. Jimenez, what does it mean to you to bring the FIA GT1 World Championship to Navarra?
Bueno, para el gobierno de Navarra es un auténtico lujo poder disfrutar de este campeonato que permite mostrar este circuito donde hemos puesto tantísimas ilusiones y tener tantísima gente que viene a disfrutar. Tenemos interés en que sigan estos campeonatos y más, porque muestran nuestra comunidad, una comunidad moderna, una comunidad donde tenemos también plantas importantes del automóvil y que nos interesa mostrar al resto del mundo y desde luego dar la acogida a todos los equipos y a todos los visitantes a esta tierra que es una tierra que muy acogedora y que quiere mucha gente.
So Roberto was telling us that for us it's a pride to host the FIA GT1 World Championship. It's a way for us to communicate the name and the beauty of the region of Navarra, which is a region with tradition in the automotive industry. Here we have big car manufacturers, all brands like Volkswagen are involved in the industry, and also it's a land of tourism, a land of good atmosphere, good food, and the people from Navarra really welcome you, and we want you to come to see us more often.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
So good to hear from the men behind bringing the FIA GT1 World Championship to Navarra. And I think we've got an hour-long race, which, if yesterday is anything to go by, these fans that have sitting on the banks have got plenty to look forward to. The grandstand is full. There's the hospitality overlooking the pit lane. That'll give you not only a good view of the circuit, but a great view of the pit stops and the people on the grid as well. There's the 32 car. Stefano Telli will be starting that number 9 Belgian Audi Club Team WRT machine. And they were a little bit disappointed with how things turned out yesterday. They could have qualified on the front row of the grid. Didn't work out for Stefan. And so from 9th on the grid, they're going to be looking to charge forward. Number 3, Tony Verlander, will be starting just in front of, well, just behind them, I should say. 10th place on the grid for Tony Verlander. And he's a driver that certainly likes to get stuck in. He's pretty much a Ferrari expert. Seems to be driving a Ferrari every weekend in one form or another. This weekend, it's at the FIA GT1 World Championship. And then you've got the 33 car of Oliver Jarvis, the second of the V1 racing team BMWs. Matthias Lauda starting that car, and it's good to see Matthias and Nicky starting to get to grips with the BMW.
Yeah, so they had a good run basically all through Saturday morning. Bit of a disappointing pit stop. We saw Nicholas Meyer-Meinhof getting very upset, and Matthias stole the car just after the driver change. And I tell you, the kick he gave, he should be playing in the German soccer team in the European Championships.
Yeah, certainly should. There we've got Mark Basseng. He will be starting 5th place on the grid in his Alenkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes. Hello, Mark. Best of luck for this one coming up. There's the leading Lamborghini. Peter Cox is going to be starting that, and I'm excited to see how Peter Cox gets to grips with this race early on, because he took pole position in qualifying, and so in theory he is the quickest driver out there. But we saw a different story yesterday in the race with the McLarens coming on strong. We also saw the BMW strong, and here are the two McLarens. Gregoire de Moustier will be starting that car from the front row of the grid, the outside of the first corner, and on pole position it will be the number 1 car, Fred Makovicky for Hexis Racing. How is this going to transpire? Are McLaren going to finish with a 1-2 in the championship race?
Well, it's another event, a different set of circumstances, different conditions. Both McLarens in the front row of the grid, they've got the best opportunity. They won the race at a canter last evening, something that was not necessarily the most popular outcome in terms of trying to keep this balance of performance between all the manufacturers on a level playing field. Nevertheless, it was an indication of the true potential of the McLaren MP412C, a car with a monocell carbon fibre chassis. It doesn't have the active ride suspension that the road car has because it is not permitted within the regulations of GT1 World Championship racing. Nevertheless, this is the circuit where McLaren and Vehices have done the majority of their testing. So in reality, it's no surprise they should have been very strong here.
Yep, they've done plenty of testing here. Also, a lot of testing at the Circuit de Ledenot, which is just outside the Vehices base. Let's have a look at the starting grid then. Pole position and the front row lockout for the McLaren GT MP412C, Fred Macavicki and Gregoire de Moustier. Then we've got the BMW and the Lamborghini on the second row of the grid. The two Mercedes make up row 3. Marc Basseng and Nicky Pastorelli starting those cars. Matthias Lauda and Oliver Jarvis, the first of the two Audi R8s, down in 8th position. Disappointment for them. There is the second one, Stefano Telli. Tony Volander, first of the Ferraris, in 10th place. 11th for Matt Halliday in the Porsche 911, and Thomas Enger alongside him. Watch for Thomas Enger. I think he could be carving through the field before too long. Francesco Castellacci and Maxime Martin in that Aston Martin. Hopefully the Aston Martins can peel through the field a little bit as well. The second ex-in-bank China Porsche, Benjamin Riche, and Matteo Crusoni and Milos Pavlovic starting at the back of the grid, which is where they've started most of the races, but it's undeserved this weekend because yesterday they were running as high as kind of 4th, 5th position before engine troubles forced them out of the race.
Well, in fact, at the start, that Ford lit up and took off like a Ford I've never seen before and just drove up outside or inside as it was down the main straight, and in fact was challenging for the lead into turn 2 with the Porsche, who then both cars had a minor collision, and that allowed the McLaren, one of the McLarens, the Moussier car driven by Alvaro Perent, to take the lead, and they held that lead up until about 5 laps or 5 minutes from the end, when eventually the Macavicki sister car took the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a 1 hour race. After 25 minutes the pit stop window will open, and in a minute the Mercedes SLS lead car, Mercedes supplying all the cars for the FIA GT1 World Championship, the lead car, the safety car, the course car and the medical car, all brilliant machines. We had a bit of fun in them on Friday, didn't we? But
yeah, they're all the 6.3 litre versions of the AMG, the C-Class, the estate car, the saloon, the CLSs, and of course the SLS itself, which has got a different engine package to the others, I believe. I need to check that one up to be sure. And we certainly had a little bit of time on track in our SLS, and it was pretty quick down the straight, registering 250 clicks on the speedo, which has to be, I believe, legally accurate these days.
So 2x2 formation. We're looking back from Marcus Wingelock. This camera will give us some cracking views throughout the race. It'll be Marc Basseng, I should say, starting this particular car, and now it's going to be the two McLarens on the front row of the grid, Lamborghini and BMW on row 2 as they come through the final corner. The third round of the 2012 FIA GT1 World Championship about to get underway. It's the two McLarens locking out the front row, BMW and Lamborghini on the second row of the grid. Very neat 2x2 formation as they exit. This 1 hour race will be underway when the lights go green here at Navarra. There we go, away we go, and it's a very good start from Marc Basseng, cutting to the inside immediately. He moves up into 3rd position. If anything, it's Gregoire de Moustier who's got the best start going down into turn 1. We look back on board from Marc Basseng as everyone jostles for position. Turn 1 is flat out in normal racing conditions, but it's the two McLarens who have got away. Fred Macavicki ahead of Gregoire de Moustier. Then it's 3rd and 4th for the two Mercedes. The BMW has been shuffled down a little bit, but all safely through turn 3. On board we go then with the 18 car of Michael Bartels, who's actually got a pretty poor start. I think he's back behind his teammate. I thought we might have had a spinner there, but it was just people running wide. Perfect start for the McLarens.
Yes, it was almost very close in turn 3. One of the Mercedes got right under the rear of the second of the two McLarens, but there was no contact. They're both all cleanly through, and right now it's McLaren, and it looks like Volander has made his way up into 3rd place.
So we're on board with Michael Bartels. He has now dropped behind Matthias Lauda as they exit down the main straight for the first time. You can see the crowd on the left-hand side outside watching to see who will be making a move under braking. Bartel's thinking about looking up the inside, but he needs to be careful because he's got Thomas Enger right up behind him. Side by side between Matteo Cressoni and Matt Halliday in the number 9 Porsche. A good start from Cressoni from the back of the grid. He's moved up considerably. There is Thomas Enger trying to go around the outside of Tony Villander. That'll be a brave one. Contact between the pair of them. They both run wide, but survive for the time being. It's Peter Cox, actually. So Peter Cox has dropped a long way back. That's a real shame. We didn't see what happened to the Lambo at the start, but he's been seriously shuffled back.
Yeah,
and there's one of the other Lambos. Yes. That must be Enger facing the wrong way. So not a good start for the Bulls.
No, indeed. And the contact that we saw there with the 25 car, that could easily lead to a flat tire. We don't know. We don't think there was any obvious signs of damage.
Slowing Michael Bartels across the line. Michael Bartels in the 18 car just disappearing under the bridge has slowed, and he's lost a lot of positions now. And I fear that maybe... Well, he's managed to find some pace again, hasn't he? So that's a bit of a strange one. He definitely lost the speed, and he's lost the back end as well. Must be a problem somewhere with the car just to the right of shot. Michael Bartels spins, so...
Well, I suspect the two things are not disconnected. Whatever caused the car to lose pace down the straight may well have had a bearing on why that car spun. It would be unusual in these circumstances to see Michael Bartels lose the car when not under pressure.
So the 32 car of Stefano Telli is attacking. Well, actually, he's just been passed, hasn't he, by Matteo Cressoni. So Cressoni is absolutely on it from the start of this race. Matt Halliday is struggling in his Porsche as they come into turn 8, out onto the main back straight. But the two McLarens are beginning to pull away. Then it's Marc Basseng in 3rd, Nicky Passarelli in 4th, not getting away from Matthias Lauda in 5th, Tony Villander in 6th, Maxime Martin, I think, is up into 7th position from all the way down in 14th on the grid. So that's a decent start again for Maxime Martin. We saw it in Zolder, we've seen it again here as Matteo Cressoni in that Sunred Ford GT hoping to get a second car out. There's his teammate Milos Pavlovic. They're hoping to get a second car out for round in the Algarve at the start of July.
But Stefano Telli under pressure from Matt Halliday, the Porsche trying to get around the Audi. Stefano Telli, we saw yesterday being, not say forceful in his defence and even in his attack.
Yeah, forceful driving yesterday from Stefano Telli, and it's going to take some forceful driving, I think, for Matt Halliday to get past the Monegasque driver. Across the line they come. This is ultimately the battle over 11th position.
Halliday.
Here comes the Porsche. Halliday up the inside into turn 1. Superior straight line speed, superior exit, and he takes that 11th position. And Francesco
Cressoni gets into trouble.
Yeah.
And he's lost 2 places already and may well lose a 3rd, because as he goes off the track he'll pick up loads of rubbish on the tyres, forces the Ferrari to back out of it, and the second of the 2 Astons just out of sympathy decides to run wide off the track also.
Yep, Andres Zuber starting that number 6 Aston Martin, doing a 42.3 on that last lap. But the 2 McLarens, well, Tony Villander actually was very, very quick, a 1 minute 40.4, the 3rd fastest lap on that last time around. He's in 6th place. Right, let's see if we can have it. Watch that Lamborghini in the middle, because how does Peter Cox get shuffled back? It's a fairly poor start initially. The 2 McLarens are away. The 2 McLarens have got the job done, and a good start as well from the... I wonder if the poor start actually from Michael Bartels was related to that problem we've seen him have.
Well, let's take a look at how it goes on in turn 2. One of the 2 BMWs rides the curb. The Lamborghini squeezes the second of the BMWs, but there's no contact at any point there, and nothing that we can see. There was a beginning of a slight rub from the Lamborghini, but there's the drag off the line. The 2 Mercedes just swamped the BMW on acceleration up the hill. As we look now, that is Michael Bartels. Yes, when he had his spin, but he had lost power, as you mentioned, or lost straight line speed, and I suspect somehow or other those 2 things are connected.
Yeah, so across the line comes Fred McAvicky, leading by 3.4 seconds from Gregoire de Moustier in 2nd position. Then we've got this queue behind, the 2 Al-Inkle Munich Motorsport cars out the front. There is the 25 car of Peter Cox, so he has recovered a little bit after that poor start.
He's up to 7th place, pushing Villander, Tony Villander.
There's Daryl O'Young on the right. Little shake of the head from Daryl O'Young, so he's not exactly delighted with how that first lap transpired, considering they started in 4th and now find themselves in 7th position. And, well, it's his turn to shake his head, because Peter Cox was shaking his head at Daryl O'Young yesterday. So
there's always frustration. I mean, part of GT racing, where you've got a partnership in a race car, there's always going to be issues which you think, why did my co-driver do such and such a manoeuvre, and that's part of the compromise you get where two drivers or more, not in the case here, but in other forms of endurance racing, are sharing cars.
So down into the hairpin of turn 9, and Matt Halliday, having got past Stefano Telli, is now just beginning to pull away in that Exim Bank Team China Porsche. You can see him pulling away because that's Stefano Telli behind us as we come into the left-hander at turn 11. Then the short squirt to turn 12 in this slower technical part of the circuit towards the end of the lap. Plenty of curb being taken. And then into turn 13, you can see Stefano Telli is dropping back under acceleration. That, of course, is natural, but he is... Oh, no, that's Matteo Cressoni. And, well, I think that's the little cut. Is that the little cut through that takes you back to the paddock? I'm not quite sure, but it looks as though more troubles for the Ford GT. No troubles for Peter Cox, though, because he is attacking Tony Verlander. You can just see it disappearing out of the shot at the bottom there, so we'll try and pick that up a little bit. Verlander and some pressure. Here we go. Hasn't managed to make the move yet, but he's looking pretty racy as Peter Cox, as I say. Pole position in the qualifying session, so he's got the pace.
Yes, but of these two cars, the Ferrari and the Lamborghini decide to get a bit tetchy with one another. You've got Maxime Martin directly behind in the Aston Martin, and Maxime Martin is more than capable of handling either Peter Cox or Tony Verlander.
Milos Pavlovic can't believe it, can he? Cannot believe his luck. The Ford GT retiring. The car has stopped at turn 11. The timing screens are telling us there's no stopping Fred McAvicky. He is pulling away at the front of the field.
He's got the best part of half the back straight advantage. Maxime Martin having a little look out to see where the positions are relative to the Ferrari and the Lamborghini, not trying to make an overtake, but just to learn exactly where they are and where he might be able to find some possibilities in a few laps' time.
Yep, so here comes Peter Cox, the highly experienced Dutch driver, against the, well, equally experienced, really, Tony Verlander. Not quite as old as Peter Cox is Tony Verlander, but he's certainly got plenty of experience. 2004 Italian, well, he would have been Italian F3 champion in 2004. I think I used that stat yesterday, but he had the right to win it, but hadn't competed in enough rounds to be eligible to win it. So certainly a large amount of pedigree in the past of Tony Verlander. Now Maxime Martin is pulling out every time. I wonder if that's cooling.
I suspect that it may be cooling not for the engine, but more likely for the brakes.
Yeah.
Because that's an area, a feature of this racetrack that some drivers have noted that they have had problems. We heard it in GT3 that Stefano Guy, he was running into brake problems on his Ferrari 458 in the GT3 event. I suspect Maxime Martin may well be suffering likewise. Certainly he'd be concerned to get the car into that cooler air, or the air that isn't being the disturbed air of the cars ahead of him.
So through the left-hander at turn 6, and the two Alenco Mercedes are beginning to close in on one another, aren't they? Nicky Pastorelli behind Marc Basseng. That last lap, Pastorelli was, well, they're lapping at a very, very similar pace. This lap, Pastorelli has taken 0.2 of a second in the first sector alone.
And already Fred McAvicky, leading this race, is now out of sight.
And we've got the clutch issues for the number 18 Vita for One car. So that's not good news for Michael Bartels, but they think it is sorted now, those clutch issues. But we'll have to wait and see. Of course, there's no manual clutch in these cars. It's all done paddle shift and automatic clutch.
And it is. But it's nice to know that it's a self-repairing system, and you don't have to go to the service station to get it repaired.
That's the good thing about the BMW, it's self-repairing. That should be their advertising, I think. Through into the final sequence of corners, we go on board with Marc Basseng. That's his teammate up behind, Nicky Pastorelli. And Basseng is starting to maybe edge away again. The gap was 0.7 of a second. Across the line they come this time. It's going to be 0.8 of a second. So he pulls out 1/10 of a second on that previous lap. You can see the vibrations going down into turn 1, flat out on the brakes into turn 2. The Mercedes seeming a little more stable through this sequence of corners today.
Well, compared to what we saw yesterday in qualifying, the two Alenco Mercedes were getting into all sorts of trouble from turn 2 into turn 3. Both cars spinning and looking particularly unstable. Now they seem to have got a better grip. What was obvious to us in the commentary booth was comparing the group, the GT1 and the GT3 Mercedes-Benz SLS, and the Charouz Motorsport, Charouz raced cars were much, much better looking than the Alenco cars. So maybe there's been a bit of crossover of understanding of what each car has been doing.
Yeah, quite possibly. So they're not too far behind the other McLaren actually either, and they lapped quicker than the second place McLaren on that previous lap. So that could well be a gap that begins to come down as Grégoire de Moustier perhaps begins to struggle with his tyres a little bit after presumably most of these cars putting on a fresh set for the championship race, 4 new sets of tyres per weekend, and they usually use them in Q1, Q2, Q3 in the championship race is the normal way to go. Everyone enjoying the race.
Was that an interlude?
Down into the final corner they come, and you can see it's a very, very closely matched race, this, isn't it? Well, Fred Makovicky is gone up at the front. He's already crossed the line, actually, and he's lapping a second a lap quicker than anyone else on the circuit. Well, actually, Matt Halliday was pretty quick on that last lap. We see Peter Cox attacking the Ferrari 458 once more. To the outside, can he get it swung back to the inside for the cutback into turn 3? No, he can't, but this is allowing Maxime Martin to come in as well.
Tony Villander was going defensive up the inside of the main straight, so Peter Cox did the right thing and said, look, I'll go out to the left and take the natural racing line. It will give me a better position if something happens to Villander, but all the time the car that I'm keeping an eye on is the third of these 3, the Aston Martin, Maxime Martin. It's a physically big car, but it has got a lot of horsepower, that Aston Martin V12 engine, and Maxime Martin will not need it at more than one invitation to try and snatch a position.
So there you can see Peter Cox on that last lap taking 0.3 of a second out of Tony Villander. Once again, Max Martin pulling out just a little bit into the hairpin at the end of the straight. He's getting very, very close to the back there, but unable to make the move just yet. But Tony Villander, after having good early pace and starting to challenge, he's missed that apex, hasn't he? He's really struggling.
Well, there's clearly a grip issue for Tony Villander right now. I mean, you wouldn't expect a driver of his ability to be inconsistent in a lap, but you're seeing that he couldn't make the apex into turn 11.
Yeah, it's really starting to stack up behind Tony Villander now. You can see this queue of cars. Matt Halliday and Oliver Jarvis in the Porsche and the Audi are the 2 quickest cars in this section. Maxime Martin, Matt Halliday on that last lap did a 1:40.5, and well, this battle is developing in front of a very busy crowd here in Navarra that we just saw. The grandstand is packed as they come into turn 1.
In fact, if you look just further down the field behind this battle with Peter Cox and Maxime Martin, you got Jarvis, Halliday, Ortelli and Castellacci, and they were, apart from Ortelli, who was in the mid-40s, all lapping in that 1:40.7.8. So behind the main battle that we're watching here with Tony Villander is a much bigger battle going on with other cars, and they are fractionally quicker than the ones we're watching.
So Fred Makovicky leads by 9 seconds, as you can see. Then Grégoire de Moustier only has a 1.9 second advantage over Marc Basseng behind him in 3rd place. 4th is the second Mercedes-Benz. 5th is the BMW of Matthias Lauda and Nicky Meermanhoff. 6th, and the queue behind is the one we're watching now of Tony Villander. A little look out from Peter Cox, not close enough yet.
Well, just watching that battle for 3rd or 2nd place in reality. Marc Basseng has run down, or in the process of running down, the 2nd place McLaren of de Moustier, Grégoire de Moustier, and that's somewhat of a surprise compared to what we saw last evening in the qualifying race for GT1s. The McLarens just literally ran away from the field. Of course, different circumstances, different track temperatures, different tyres possibly to the sets that they've now, out of the 4 sets they get, depending on the wear on the set of tyres that they started this championship race with. No doubt there'll be a new set available, whether that will be given to Alvaro Parent when he gets into the car when Grégoire de Moustier comes into the pits, possibly in about 9 minutes' time, as the pit lane will open after 35 minutes.
Yep, so across the line they come. Was there more? Yeah, 0.3 of a second on that last lap. Basseng took out of de Moustier. And here comes Halliday side by side with Oliver Jarvis and is through past Oliver Jarvis up into 9th place. So Oliver Jarvis thinks about getting the cutback, but not close enough. But yeah, good move from Matt Halliday, who's starting to build his way through the field. Bit of a poor start from Halliday, but he's getting into the flow now.
But I was just mentioning, this is the group of cars, Jarvis, Halliday, Ortelli and Castellacci, who are having a 4-way battle all the way down for what is effectively 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th places. And they were lapping at the pace not just of the lead car, but certainly the cars that were ahead of them. In fact, fractionally quicker than the group of cars, which comprises Vilander, Cox, and Maxime Martin.
So down into the hairpin they come, and I wonder, is Matthias Lauda, yeah, he was 0.2 of a second quicker than Nicky Pastorelli on that previous lap. Excuse me, on that previous lap, and as a result he might be dragging himself into what will ultimately be a battle over second place. There's Mike Parisi, and he is watching on as his teammate climbs up into 9th position.
He's still in his civvies. He hasn't even changed into his race suit.
No rush, no rush.
Well, the pit lane's going to be opening in 7.5 minutes.
So
6.5 minutes.
Mike Parisi fairly laid back as Matt Halliday carves through the order. Let's see what this lap is in clear air. That'll be quite interesting to see what sort of pace the Porsche has. This looks like a better effort from de Moustier this time around. He's been doing 41.3s for the past couple of laps. That's a 41.1, so that's better, and a 41.5 for Marc Basseng, 41.3 for Nicky Pastorelli. So the second McLaren moving ahead a little bit. Vilander is really having to defend now, but these two have managed to drop Maxime Martin.
Yes, the Aston's dropped back a little bit as we see.
Big slide
the Lamborghini just trying to think about what suddenly the Ferrari is moving around. The Lamborghini probably wasn't quite prepared for Peter Cox, maybe slightly caught unawares that Tony Vilander was in some form of trouble. But we've seen the Ferrari, they say no straight line speed, but we're seeing pretty good straight line speed in comparison to those competitive cars that are around.
So the pit lane window opens in 7 minutes time, and as they exit onto the back straight once more, it's the two WRT Audis that look like they might go at it again. Stefano Telli versus Oliver Jarvis, round 3 of the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an ongoing battle, but let's hope this battle doesn't become physical. We saw that happen in Zolder some weekends ago, and I would hope that the drivers have worked it out. I think Frank Stipper did indicate that there were discussions taking place within the Audi team about taking each other out of a race.
Yeah, and also the communication problems that caused them such strife at Zolder. But this is the battle, really. Peter Cox desperately trying to find a way past Tony Vilander, because Cox no doubt feels he has better pace than the Ferrari in front of him, and I would say that's probably true looking at the practice times and the qualifying times. He's taken a nice wide line into the final corner, and this could be one of the best efforts, or one of the best opportunities for Peter Cox. Vilander goes defensive. I'm surprised Cox doesn't follow him to try and get a bit of a tow. Obviously slipstreaming not quite as vital in these cars as in a single-seater or something like that, but it still helps.
Well, I think Peter Cox realises that even if he is in the slipstream of the Ferrari, it's not really giving him any huge assistance. Where it's going to work for the Lamborghini is going to be through turns 2 into turn 3, where the Ferrari clearly isn't as quick as the Lamborghini, and then the other options will come up through turns 6 into 7. 8 leads onto the back straight, so you've got to prepare for an opportunity to look down the inside as we go back on board with Stefano Telli.
To the right, into the left-hander at turn 6, then the kink right, and you can see he's catching up a lot more apexes he's hitting than Oliver Jarvis, and he's going to be getting sick of the sides of the back of Oliver Jarvis, because he's I don't know what that is. He gesticulating or just sticking his hand out the window to cool it down?
No, there's I don't know, that's not air conditioning, but certainly airflow in the car. He just put his hand up.
Oh, he's gone wide there, hasn't he, on the exit of 9?
Yeah.
Wonder if that'll put him under pressure from Francesco Castellacci. Castellacci, as they crossed the line, was half a second behind, so we may soon see that Ferrari right up behind. No, he's not close enough to take advantage, but definite mistake from Ortelli on the exit of 9 there.
Further back, getting a view of Thomas Enger. He got spun around on the opening lap, and he's fighting his way up, running in the middle, or the low 1 minute 41s. Pretty much the pace, in fact, probably much fractionally quicker than everybody from Matt Halliday down to Castellacci in the Ferrari. So Thomas Enger, as we look now, see Mike Parisi has got himself suited and booted. So the performance of Thomas Enger is strong. And just to think about the lap time of Peter Cox, 41.9 last lap. Thomas Enger 41.5. Enger, the quicker of the two Ferraris, but he's running in cleaner air and able to run at a natural pace, whereas we're having to watch Peter Cox battle with Tony Vilander in the Ferrari.
So we're on board with Matt Halliday as he tries to hunt down the Aston Martin. He's managed to close in pretty quickly to the tune of about 0.3 of a second per lap. So it's Not going to be long before Matt Halliday is seriously starting to make some moves. A little bit of opposite lock necessary as he comes under braking for turn 6. Feathers the throttle through the right-hander at 7, down into 8. Let's see how, well, there's Mike Parisi getting all suited and booted, ready to take over.
Well, Mathieu Martin had to go out to the right because he sensed that the Porsche of Matt Halliday was in a challenging position. We know that the Porsche has got good straight line speed. The back straight here in Navarro isn't as long as the front straight, the pit straight is. Nevertheless, it offers an opportunity for a car to get alongside into turn 9, and if you're the car that makes the move and down the inside, well, then it's going to be your corner.
Matthias Lauda has started to get his game together as well. He's now just, well, he took 0.6 of a second out of Nicky Pastorelli on that last lap, and on this lap he has taken a further 0.2 in the opening 2 sectors. So all of a sudden Matthias Lauda has come into his own, and he's right up behind the Mercedes. So it's Mercedes versus BMW in the battle over P5, which is what the pit board just told you. He's not going to be quite close enough this time around. Maxime Martin is starting to become a little bit of a train in the background in that Team Russia Aston Martin as well. Covers the inside line, moves back to the racing line, and swings into the right-hander. And that's Benjamin Lariche. And he, well, whether that's a breakdown or a spin.
Well, I think that's coming into turn 11. For some reason the car is way off part of the interconnecting circuit. There's about 17 variations of circuit here in Navarra.
Well, yeah, unless it's broken down at turn 6 and he's then driven across. But he's, well,
whatever he's done, he's made a mess of it because he's stalled the car and he's now facing against the tyre barrier, and he needs to reverse that car, but of course he may not be able to.
Yeah, Benjamin Lariche is running down in 16th position. Rich racing heritage in that family. His grandfather used to own the Magny-Cours Formula 1 circuit.
I thought Bernie Eccleston owned it.
Oh no, this was a long time ago, John. This was a long time.
This is the original.
Yeah, original. Pre 1992 or
when
whenever.
Formula 3 cars used to race there in the middle 60s, and a great part of the travelling circus that went there all around Europe.
Those were the days. Those were the days. There's Darrell O'Young getting ready to take over from Peter Cox in 7th position, looking very stony-faced as the Canadian-born Chinese racer.
Yep, and I mean that's what you do. You go through your own form of preparation. As we look and see some of the Alenko, there's that
Winkelhock, that is.
Winkelhock just limbering up, just warming up. So the drivers make the driver change. It's quite a physical effort to get out of one of these cars. It's even more physical to get into it and make sure you get the belts down up quickly without making them. You can make a real mess doing it as too speedy a pit stop. There's the race leader comfortably in the lead by 16.3 seconds. Fred McAvicky's only had clear air. He's never seen another car on the racetrack since the lights went green. And it's his teammate de Moussier who's managed to maintain about a 2+ second gap over the leading of these two Mercedes SLS.
Yep, and when Alvaro Parente takes over, expect there to be some possibly some more pace in that car. Down towards turn 6 comes this long queue of cars, which is ultimately over, well, 3rd place really. 3rd place is 18 seconds off the lead, and 11th, 12th, well, there's 10 seconds covering 3rd place all the way down to 12th place. So very, very close stuff. Alvaro Parente limbers up.
Well, he's going to be in that car because the pit lane is going to open up in 20 seconds. And it's going to be very close. These cars, I think Parente's car, the car driven by de Moussier, look down the inside. The Porsche gets it done, does he? He can maintain it, yes, past the Aston Martin.
But Martin will have the inside line for the next left-hander, but Matt Halliday has made the move stick. So initially, that's a strange one because it looked a bit half-hearted initially. I wonder if de Moussier is going to come in this time around, but it looked a bit half-hearted from Halliday. Martin thought he was being a bit more committed, left the door open, and that allowed him through. So the pit stop window is open. The teams can now come in and change their drivers if they require. We've got Marcus Winkelhock waiting. We've got Laurence Van Thor hanging around in the pit lane as well. Into the pits comes
Bassang's the first car in the pits, so de Moussier may not have been able to come in. The pit lane may not have been open at the point he came up to the pit lane entry slip road, so he's had to do another lap. We know Alvaro Parente standing there to take over that car, so it's Bassang in and it's going to be Winkelhock out.
Mark Bassang very proudly told me earlier that his team had the quickest pit stops of anyone in yesterday's qualifying race, 1.2 seconds quicker than any other team. And here we can see why, getting strapped in. And it's Bassang now away they go. And that's a decent stop for that squad. And heading out of the pit lane.
Yeah, there's certainly, in terms of competition, I mean, that's the Bartels car that's been driven by Yilmar Bormann. So I think that's a very good stop indeed for Mark Bassang. Marcus Winkelhock behind the wheel of the car. So we'll have to wait effectively for another 8 minutes or so till this whole pit stop window filters its way through as we go back to the lead car. Fred Makovic comfortably in the lead by 17.2 seconds, and he's staying out. He doesn't need to come in. He's doing all he can do and all he needs to do. So it's going to be another lap for Fred Makovic before we see Steph Dusseldorf go into that car.
Into the pits comes, that was number 8, that was Benjamin Lariche, so it must have been just a spin or something, and he's going to hand over to Dino Lenardi. Into the pits then comes our second place car of Gregoire de Moustier. Also in comes the Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes of Nicky Pastorelli. So this is going to be a bit of a straight pit lane fight, because if the Mercedes...
Damage in the back of the Lamborghini.
Yeah, well, that had contact earlier on, didn't it? Peter Cox getting a bit of a cloud. So this could be a straight pit lane battle, because if... Well, he was 2 seconds behind. If Alinkel can put in another good stop and be 1 to 2 seconds quicker, they might be able to take this second position here. So we are watching.
I want to see whether anybody's got a set of fresh tyres. There's used tyres going on to the Mercedes. He didn't get a glimpse of the Hexes team to see whether that car had a fresh set of tyres for Alvaro Parent. Well, the car's just come off the jacks. Hard to tell. That's
it's
that's
not
been
starting.
One of the bugbears.
There he goes. Is he going to get out in time? Here comes the McLaren down the pits, and the Mercedes has made it, has it? Yes, they have leapfrogged the Hexis Racing McLaren. So Thomas Jaeger is now ahead of the Hexis of Alvaro Parente. Out of the pits they come, and the second Alinkel car is going to leapfrog them too. Here comes Mark Bassang, Marcus Winkelhock, I should say, down the pit straight. He moves up into a net second place, net third for that Mercedes, and is now fourth position. Net, we'll have to wait until the pit stops sort themselves out, but that Hexis McLaren has lost at least 2 positions. Congratulations around the team. As I say, Bassang was pretty proud of his pit crew yesterday, and he's pretty proud of them again today.
Yeah, you can see not only is he the driver, he's the boss, and he's pleased with what the team have done, and he should be very proud indeed, because the only way they're going to win this race is not going to be an out-and-out pace. It's going to be in good strategy, good teamwork in the pit lane, and make that driver change as snappy as possible.
Yeah, definitely. So there are the two Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes. They are the leaders of our pitters. Is this Hexis ready for our race leader? No, in comes the BMW of Matthias Lauda. He's going to hand over to Nicky Meyer-Melnoff. Also into the pits we've got a Ferrari and a Porsche, I think, so that's going to be pretty entertaining. Yep, Verlander and Halliday. Porsche have struggled a little bit with their pit stops, so there you can see Nicky Meyer-Melnoff taking over from Matthias Lauda as the wheels get changed. I wonder if they're going to leave. They'll probably leave Thomas Enger out for as long as possible in that second Lamborghini to try and close in the gap, because he is currently lapping 142.8 on that last lap, so not a particularly strong lap from Enger. Here's the battle between the Ferrari and the Porsche. Oh no, one of the Aston Martins cruising down the pit wall. That's Max Martin. Hasn't had the chance to hand over to Leo Machitsky, but he has already retired from the race. Away goes the Ferrari, and the Porsche have still got one more wheel to change. So
interestingly, Alvaro Parent, there we see him in the McLaren. They lost ground to the two Mercedes. There's a pass coming into turn 2.
Yes, this is just coming out of the pits then, and the BMW has not quite been able to get past the Mercedes, so that promotes the Mercedes into third, second and third, and so that means actually the BMW has got out in front of the Hexis McLaren as well. So next time they come across the line, we'll try and sort out exactly who has got in front of the Hexis McLaren, but the number 2 car has lost a reasonable amount of positions.
Yeah, but it's also the quickest car on the track right now. We had purples, i.e. fastest in every sector, and Parent personal best in the first sector, so that car you've got a BMW now between the McLaren and the Mercedes-Benz, so Alvaro Parent has got even more work to do. Not just 2 Mercedes, he's also got this BMW of Nicky Meyer-Melnoff.
Yep, so this is fantastic stuff, isn't it? So that means so Maxime Martin unfortunately is out of the race. I think he's just pulled off down here at the first corner, or has he managed to get it going again? Not quite sure where he's gone, but here is the pit stop for Thomas Enger, handing over to Albert von Turnen Taxis, who negotiates his very lengthy figure into the car, and he will take over from Thomas Enger. They've pitted from 4th position. Not quite sure where they'll come out. Bit of a problem on the front left, though, unfortunately.
A bigger problem on the rear, the bodywork. I mean, how that's going to be allowed to go back on track with the bodywork in that condition, I'm not certain.
This is a lot of time lost. The front left not being compliant by any stretch of the imagination. So there's our race leader, Fred Makowiecki. When will he be coming in to hand over to Stef Dusseldorp? That's the next question. And
well, you've just answered it, I think.
Well, yes. Now, in he comes. A little update on Maxime Martin. He has got going again, but he's going very, very slowly down the straight. So I fear that he's not going to last too much longer in this race. But here's Stef Dusseldorp then, about to take over from Fred Makowiecki. I'm expecting them to come out in a comfortable lead if all goes to plan with the pit stop. And as you say, the starting system on the McLaren is one of the biggest problems they've had.
It's been a problem. Hopefully it's a problem they've rectified. Certainly it seemed to work perfectly yesterday evening. But we saw that when Alvaro Parent went into the car, it was a couple of seconds before the engine actually fired up. You could hear the engine being spun over. And it has been one of the areas where McLaren have been working tirelessly again to get the kind of performance that they expect to deliver. And let's listen again. It's still grinding. You hear this car, they're still working in the right rear, that's right.
Yeah, so is that
a problem on the right rear?
No, there's a problem somewhere. So, Stef Dusseldorp, race leader, is having troubles. This could give the lead to the two Munich Motorsports. Alinco.com Mercedes, no, away he goes, so they've got it sorted, but
he had a 17 to 18 second advantage prior to the pit stops over the rest of the field. He's going to get out. He's lost a lot of time to these two Mercedes, and he will get out ahead of them, I believe, although they were at the beginning of the pit lane. There we see the McLaren exiting the pit lane now on full throttle as the two Mercedes and the BMW and whatever is behind that, I can't work it out, make their way up into turn 2.
Yes, so McLaren leads, Mercedes 2nd and 3rd, BMW 4th, McLaren in 5th place, and this is Alvaro Parent trying to attack and make his way past. He's got to get past 3 cars if he wants to finish where he qualified, so it's a real...
The McLaren's going to be all over the BMW coming down the hill into turn 5, looking to get up inside of the car with not enough room. He's going to force the issue. It may mean contact, but he can hold the outer line. The McLaren, look, the car's just driven right under the BMW, indicating where this car is in terms of its, not only its performance today, but its potential for the future.
Yep, so the McLaren makes its way up into 4th position, but now it's got the harder nuts to crack. The two Alinco.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes, it's got to get past both of them. Who haven't we seen in pit stop then? It's only Stefano Telli who has not come in, and he does so now, just as I say that. So Stefano Telli is the last of our pit runners. Maxime Martin has come into the pits now with electrical or, some kind of problem. You can just see it to the right there in shot. But there comes the changeover. Laurens Vanthoor, the 21-year-old now. I think he had his birthday a couple of weeks ago, taking over from Stefano Telli in that 32 Belgian Audi Club car. A problem on the front right, unfortunately. Max Martin heading out of the pits again. Oh no, he's probably come in now and handed over, hasn't he, to Leo Machitsky. How quickly can they get Ortelli out? Where is he going to come in the grand scheme of things?
Well, he's not going to come out very far.
Slow pit stop, isn't it?
It's not a great pit stop at all. I mean, normally this is normally a very slick, organised pit stop team. He's just about managed to get clear of the air hose, so the car on its way, but that was a disappointing stop for Laurens Vanthoor.
There's his teammate just coming through now. On the right-hand side is Frank Stippler, who's taken over from Oliver Jarvis. So Laurens Vanthoor is now going to be right at the back of this main pack, really.
Well, you might say, in fact, that's where the car was in reality. It was always behind the Porsche. There's a bit of the bodywork now, which is that part of the Lamborghini that we saw. Can't quite tell. The Aston Martin going very, very slowly indeed, trying to stay off the racing line, but certainly on the outside of the circuit, coming down the hill into turn 5.
Yep, so that's Leo Machitsky has obviously taken the car out again. I'm not... will he go straight on? There goes the brave Marshall, legging it out to pick up that piece of debris, but the number 7 car, Leo Machitsky, not working out exactly how he would have wanted. He last raced one of these Aston Martins back in 2006, did Leo. No racing, well, very limited racing since then, unfortunately for him, as he concentrates on getting Russia more involved in motorsport, and it seems to be working out a treat. Of course, FIA GT1 goes to the Moscow Raceway later in the year. Let's hear from Fred Makovicky. He took commanding lead of the race. His teammates now in the car.
An awesome stint by yourself, Fred. What was going on in the pit stop? You almost lost it there.
Maybe a problem of voltage of battery, because the starter didn't work and we lose a little bit time with this. It's a good point. We will start on the front, and now I'm really confident of Steph to finish the job.
39.779 for Steph Dusseldorp. So that number one Hexus McLaren still working beautifully out there, and he is lapping 1 and a bit seconds quicker than the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, the gap on the previous lap was 2.2 seconds up to now 4.1. So we're seeing Steph Dusseldorp doing what he did yesterday when he had to drive from the back of the field to get this car up to the front to hand it over to Fred Makovicky. As we see, one of those, Aston Martin.
Yeah, that's Machitsky.
Yeah, Machitsky getting changed.
Doesn't really need a lift back from there, does he? He's pretty much by the paddock. That's a little bit lazy, but anyway, down into turn 1 comes Steph Dusseldorp, and second, third and fourth is the battle to watch, because here comes the second McLaren of Alvaro Parent. Thomas Jaeger is closing in on Marcus Winkelhock, his teammate in front of him. So we've got 2 Mercedes and a McLaren all squabbling over what they would like to be second position. The McLaren pit stop we're about to see again. Maybe we can try and figure out exactly what happened, because they came into the pits and the wheel changes
It's not a matter of that. It wasn't a matter of the wheel stop. It was the thing. The car wouldn't. There wasn't enough juice to get the thing to start. That's what he was talking about in the pit lane. The actual pit stop itself, in terms of the wheel changes, wasn't the issue. It was when they tried to start the car up and it came off the jacks. That's where the problem arose. And that's why they had to open the right-hand door on the car to make an adjustment to get the thing to fire.
Yep. So there they go. They dropped the jack, and then they were all looking around saying, you know, why aren't you going, Steph? He was trying to get the car started. They opened the door, as you say, adjusted something down in there, and then the car managed to fire up, and away they went. But ultimately, that cost them probably about 10, 15 seconds.
And the rest, nearly 20 seconds. Interestingly, Yelmer Berman in the BMW currently now is the fastest race lap. That car in 7th place, running in a high 1:39s, when all around it, with the exception of Steph Dusseldorp leading the race, are doing 41s.
And this is Yelmer Berman, I think, trying to make his way past Darrell O'Young in the battle for 6th position. So that car, despite its problems and dropping back, it's had a lot of practice climbing through the field today, hasn't it? So into turns 8 and 9 they come. Darrell O'Young will no doubt try and defend. And look at this. This is Albert von Turnhen-Taxis has not changed over his transponder, so they're making a little pit board to say, look, change your transponder, Albert, and hopefully he will do, because at the moment there's still Thomas Enger in the car according to the timing screens. The same is true of Benjamin Lariche and Dino Lenardi. They need to swap their transponders over as well.
I would assume that there's a radio contact to the car, but obviously not, so they're going to put a visual prompt to get Albert. There's the back of that, what was the Thomas Enger. Darrell, that was the car whose bodywork we did see on the track. So, again, telling Albert von Turnhen-Taxis to adjust the transponder from the cockpit to enable the timing and scoring to know that this is Albert von Turnhen-Taxis in the car and not Thomas Enger.
Yep, it's just a little switch that on the dashboard that he'll need to flick, or a small dial that he'll need to twist from one position to the other, but at the moment Albert isn't quite doing it. So here is the real concertina of a battle over second position. It's not going to be long before Alvaro Parent tries to get past the first car, then the 38 car of Mark Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock.
Mark, obviously extremely impressed with your pit stop by the team. They've done a fantastic job all weekend. Can you take the McLaren, and will you guys be winning and taking second place?
It's really difficult. The pit stop was awesome. The guys did a lightning pit stop, really good, but it's the only chance what we can do at the moment to be in a more in front position than just with the race speed, because our car is never so quick, the McLaren. McLaren already in the first lap was 9/10 quicker behind us, and 1.1 second in front of us the car was quicker. So that is not with fair weapons, I would say, and I hope it will be fair that we can keep one podium for us and maybe finish 3 and 4. That would be great.
Thank you.
So 3rd and 4th is the hope. The team manager of car 4 has to go to the race director immediately, so that's Enzo Eid, well, it's not Enzo Eid. Enzo Eid's driving the car. He doesn't have to go and see the race director. It's the team manager of AF Corsa that needs to go and have a little chat. Not quite sure exactly what that's about.
We've seen very little of the Castellacci Enzo Eid car other than at the early part of the race, so we don't know what has gone on, whether it's an incident with another car or whether it's a transgression on the circuit. But in the meantime, Alvaro Parent trying to keep in contact with Thomas Jaeger and the Mercedes-Benz directly ahead of it. He needs to be in position to use the strengths of the McLaren, which are clearly just the car has got a lot of grip where it counts, and it counts going into turn 2 here. Alvaro Parent doing the right thing, not overrunning the back of the Mercedes. Now we saw a great move down the inside and a few laps earlier when he got past Nicky Meyer-Meinhof in the BMW, but not close enough to the Mercedes-Benz coming down the hill to stick the nose up the inside. But he could try and do it into turn 6 by being very late and brave and not close enough.
Here is Enzo Eid coming under a lot of pressure from Mike Parisi. This is the battle over 10th position. So the slower pit stop for the Porsches have dropped them back outside of the points. But Mike Parisi is lapping, well, he's on a 41.2. So that's a pretty quick lap, really. And he is closing in on Enzo Eid by about 0.2 of a second per lap or so. We go on board with him having to take evasive action almost as we ride with the Porsche down towards turn 8. The Porsche's got decent straight line speed, and that's probably what he's going to try and use.
But Laurens van Thor is right on the tail of the Porsche, so Mike Parisi's going to have to be kept pretty honest, because he's not going to have the luxury of being able to relax in the chase of Enzo Eid, because there you can see Van Thor in that Audi. Again, we've seen in these 3-car battles, it's often the third car of the 3 that comes out the beneficiary.
Yeah, definitely. So into the double left-hander they come at turn 11 and then 12. And the Ferrari, Porsche and Audi squabbling over the final point. There you can see up in front the 33 Audi of Frank Stippler. So Laurens van Thor only really back here because of that poor pit stop that we saw him have. And he's not quite close enough to make a move just yet. What's Parisi going to be like through this final corner? Gets on the power nice and early, nice and smooth. How close is he going to... Well, he's dropped back a little bit from the Ferrari, actually, I'd say, as they come across the line. The gap has now gone up to, well, it's half a second between each of them.
But you can see from the onboard camera shot on the Porsche how much it was able to pull ahead of the Audi on that uphill climb up into turn 2. And that's really frustrating. If you're sitting in that situation, you can do nothing about the performance. Laurens van Thor is doing all the good work around the twisty part of the circuit. As soon as he sees the straight, the Porsche just drops him.
Yep, so Alvaro Parent still yet to get past the car of Thomas Jaeger in front of him, even though he has the potential to lap, a second or so quicker. Basseng and, Winkelhock and Jaeger have brought their pace down a little bit. They're still lapping a second off the McLaren out in front, but Parente is... It doesn't seem to be any particular advantage to the McLaren. It's just at all the...
No, it's the same old story. You get slowed down to the pace of the car or the cars ahead of you, and you lose your momentum. Alvaro Parent was very quick to run down the 2 Mercedes, but once he got into the Mercedes zone, then his performance was stalled out. So he's now having to think about the bits of the track. He knows where he's very strong. But of course, you've got a smart guy like Thomas Jaeger, who's not going to offer up the level of opportunities that maybe Nicky Meyer-Meinhof was able to do driving the BMW.
It's very true. We're on board with Laurens van Thor, so if anything, he's the one who's going to be going on the attack on the Porsche. But that Porsche, as we've said, has got good straight line speed. If we stick with this onboard down the straight, we'll just see the Porsche.
Adios, Laurent. Look, you can see it. You can almost measure it. The Porsche just pulls away, and you're sitting in the Audi doing all you can, giving it everything the Audi's got, and the Porsche's taking a distance of about 2 car lengths going into the corner to about 10 car lengths at the end of the straight.
Yep, so we'll have to see how this battle still over 10th place transpires. Enzo Eid holding on in his AF Corsa Ferrari. There is Oliver Jarvis. His teammate is running in 9th position. Frank Stippler a second behind Salaquada in front. Drive-through penalty for Albert von Turnentaxis. The engine was running whilst the team were working on the car. You have to turn the engine. In fact, that's
not his fault.
I think that happened here last year. In fact, I think one of the Al Inkelkar's got done for that here last year. But anyway, nevertheless.
Well, I mean, there's the car minus its rear bodywork. I wonder how much slower or quicker it is. And there's bits another underfloor of another car, whether it's all from the same Lamborghini or not. But in fairness to Albert von Turnen Taxis, when the car came in, it was the responsibility of Thomas Enger to shut it down. If it was running when Albert got into the car, then that was a silly fundamental error.
Yeah, not the kind of error you'd expect from Thomas Enger, really. But nevertheless, it's going to be a drive-through penalty for them. They've had a difficult afternoon, really, that number 24 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini. Well, both the Lamborghinis have not been quite as strong as I think they would have anticipated or wanted. Peter Cox going quickest in opening practice. Thomas Enger was up there too. I should say the warm-up this morning, they went quickest. There's this large crowd here at Navarra for what is FIA GT1's third visit now to Navarra. Each time it's been won by a Lamborghini, but it doesn't look as though that's the case today, as they come through the right-hander. Mike Parisi, we're watching. He's lost out, hasn't he? So somewhere Laurens Vanthoor's got past him.
We didn't see that actually happening,
no,
but that is the effect
of change of position.
Well, the Porsche had the straight line speed, but around this part of the racetrack, the Audi did have the advantage. So for some reason, Mike Parisi has lost that position to the Audi.
So we think that the Porsche went wide down there at turn 1, 2 and 3.
Having said that, Laurens Vanthoor just ran wide coming out of turn 8, but seemingly managed not to lose any ground to the Porsche.
So now Vanthoor's going to have a little attack. Let's go on board with Laurens. There goes out of shape.
Well, a sudden bit of oversteer for Mike Parisi, and he had literally nothing to do but correct it and end up off the racetrack. And for Laurens Vanthoor, that was a gift that he was grateful to accept.
So now can he begin to mount a challenge on Enzo Eid for 9th position? There's Stefano Telli. What does he think? No expression for him. There's the drive.
Well, I mean, other than he's pleased, as we've seen how Albert von Turnen Taxis come back out and slots in between the two BMWs of Nicky Meyer-Melhoff and Jelmer Bowman, who's been doing a good job. I think he still holds the fastest race lap.
Yes, he does. And he's been closing in on his teammate by a second and a half a lap. So
here we go.
The move is going to be made before too long, but we're still watching this battle for third place effectively. Well, not effectively, factually. Thomas Jaeger in third, fourth for the McLaren of Alvaro Parent. We know the McLaren has more pace than Thomas Jaeger, but he's not able to do anything about it yet. Down the back straight they come, and well, the Mercedes struggles in a straight line really because it's a heavier car. It's had a bit of a restrictor brake this weekend.
Yes, they've got a bit more.
A millimetre and a half.
The restrictor in the intake system on the engine has been given a slightly larger opening, so that gives them a bit more horsepower to offset some of the other areas where they felt that the balance of performance, and this thing of balance of performance is there primarily to prevent what we actually seen yesterday to a lesser extent today, and there's one of the BMWs going past Thomas saying, are they
von Turnen Taxis
yes,
being lapped.
They're sort of unlapping and then relapping, so we're seeing that car getting ahead of the Lamborghini, just got caught between the two BMWs when it came out of the pits.
So pretty good effort from Jelmer Bowman. They went from the back of the grid, well, from the pit lane in fact, to third yesterday, and they've gone from, well, they dropped back, didn't they, with that engine problem, pretty much to about 14th or 15th, and have climbed back up into 6th position. We go on board now with Laurens Vanthoor coming into the final right-hander at turn 15. He's got 10 minutes to try and find his way into 10th position. Tries to get the cutback. He's got a pretty good run actually out of this final corner, tucked right up behind the Ferrari. You can see the Ferrari is just edging away from the Audi, so it's going to have to be through the corners that Vanthoor is going to make this move.
Well, I know that some of the Audi drivers were unhappy with the straight line performance of the R8 V10, and there you can see why both with the Porsche and now with the Ferrari 458 they are losing out, and that's nothing more than just horsepower. It's nothing to do with aerodynamic drag in particular, it's just simply grunt.
There are the WRT team watching on as Laurens tries to make his way through. Here we come through turn 5, nice wide line in, shifting down, back end stepping out just a little bit, keeps it all together nice and tidily. 2/10 of a second quicker than the Ferrari on that previous lap as he tries to, he's got a good run actually out of that turn 8, but again it's the Ferrari straight line speed that's going to...
the Ferrari just stretches the advantage. It just moves to the middle of the road, then comes back to the left-hand side. Laurens van Thor has a look down the inside, late in the brakes, gets the car in, could have easily overrun the corner by just being a little bit ambitious on braking, but he's back in the same position he's been in. Enzo Ede is having to be defensive in this part of the racetrack, the final sector, where there really are very few chances to make a move, again only dependent on whether somebody is going to make a mistake. Pierre Dudonné, and up the inside, good job Laurens van Thor, but what about the cutback? Enzo Ede tries to do it, but he's on the wrong side of the track.
Rubbing doors as they come towards the final part of the corner. He might have the inside. No, he couldn't quite hang it on around the outside.
Good job by Laurens van Thor. In a part of the racetrack where it's difficult to make a pass, he flashes the headlights as he goes past the pits. He needs to be careful now. The Porsche's going to make a move on Enzo Ede as well. Porsche's got even more straight line speed than the Ferrari has up the hill, and the Ferrari tries. Is he going to get the ball? He's got 2 and 1.
Up the inside goes Mike Parisi. Laurens van Thor hangs it in the corner.
Whoa,
and now he's sliding. He's lost it. Parisi comes through. Parisi comes through up into 10th position. Van Thor down into 11th. Enzo Ede tries to dart back to the inside into 4, I should say. Doesn't work, but Mike Parisi will be saying, what just happened there? He just glided past them.
Absolutely, but I mean, there's no surprise at the Porsche straight line speed. We know it's very, very strong indeed. But Enzo Ede really had an opportunity to put the Audi behind him, but Laurens van Thor was very forceful, as you would expect from a single-seater race driver in a GT situation. He didn't offer up the Porsche, it was the Ferrari, I beg your pardon. Enzo Ede looked like he was struggling in turn 8. But what a great little bit of motor racing there, all because of this car and its straight line speed.
Now, are we going to get a switcheroo between cars 17 and 18? Nicky Maimanoff ahead of Jelmer Berman, currently in 5th and 6th position, those two BMWs are. And, Jelmer Berman has been closing in and is about a second and a half a lap quicker. But
it's going to happen very shortly, if not on this main straight up the hill into turn 1, and Jelmer Berman, the quicker of the two drivers in these two BMW M4Zs. Nicky Maimanoff not indicating he's going to make it a straightforward team decision, and into turn 2.
Yep, so we go on board with the number 18 car of Jelmer Berman. You can see how much quicker he's been than his teammate in front as we listen to that fantastic roar of the onboard.
And Matthias Lauda.
Yeah,
you could see almost exasperation on his face, thinking, well, you know, the quicker of the two BMWs, and there we are. Nicky Maimanoff pulls over and lets the Jelmer Berman car go through, and good teamwork, because it was recognised by Maimanoff that this is the slower of the two cars. Matthias Lauda looking disappointed because he'd done a really strong job in his stint, and then to lose it pit lane and then lose it on the racetrack as well.
So up into 5th place then goes Jelmer Berman, 6th for Nicky Maimanoff. 7th place is Darrell O'Young. He's lapping as near as makes no difference the same pace as Nicky Maimanoff, so I don't think that gap's going to close. I was expecting Alvaro Parent, okay, it was going to be
blitz them.
Well, no, it was always going to be difficult to get past, but
it wasn't difficult yesterday.
No, that's true, but he can't. But he's not. He's half a second behind. He should be lapping much quicker than this, and he should be at least following them closely.
Well, we don't know if there's any issues with the car. We did see a problem with the lead car, the Fred Mikavicki car, when it came in. It had difficulty starting, which was put down to a electrical problem, battery possibly. And just wonder, is there an issue with the second of these two McLarens? It looks like the car works well in a corner, it works extremely well under braking, but maybe they're not just able to get the maximum out of it in terms of straight line performance.
I apologise, that's not Darrell O'Young behind, that's actually Albert von Turn.
And he's going as quick as the two BMs.
Yep, that's actually Albert von Turn and Taxis behind the two BMWs there, who has been lapped. He's lapping in the 41.8, which is a decent pace considering his lack of running. He's lapping quicker than Darrell O'Young, actually, in the sister car. But
of course he's a lap down on those two BMWs.
Yes, he is. But still, good lap times nevertheless for Albert von Turn and Taxis after his drive-through penalty. So it's this second, third and fourth place battle that's going to keep us entertained for the remaining 4 minutes and 20 seconds of the third round of the FIA GT1 World Championship. Down into the hairpin comes Markus Winkelhock in second, Thomas Jaeger in third, the McLaren of Alvaro Parent in fourth, Steph Dusseldorp, by the way, is leading the race, 13.2 seconds clear, and here's Laurens Vanthoor sending one up the inside at turn 13.
And that's where he got the pass on Engineer.
And then here comes the Porsche. Look, we go on board with him. He goes past one, and then all of a sudden he thinks, oh, hang on, I could get two of them here. But the Audi, pretty impressively actually, hangs it on around the outside.
But look what happens. Look at the Audi. It gets up, well, initially sideways onto the dirty part of the track. No grip. And Mike Parisi says, thank you very much. But watch how Vanthoor comes across, literally across the front of the Ferrari. Enzo Weed must have thought, this is his race over. This is an overtake, which is really very much into team play. Jelmer Berman passing Nicky Meyermanhoff. So that was team orders or team strategy.
3.5 minutes to go. And Alvaro Parent, I think, will be very disappointed if he can't get past either of these two Mercedes, because he has been arguably the quickest man all weekend in this McLaren. Of course, Alvaro, one of the McLaren test drivers for this car. Steph Dusseldorp in this car and his teammate Fred McAvicky have both been very quick, but Alvaro Parent has been a development driver for McLaren over the past few years during the development of this MP412C. I think he debuted the car in the Blancpain Endurance Series at Silverstone at the end of last year. He was one of the works drivers, so he knows this car inside out. He's had the pace of it here in Navarra, but to not be able to get past these Mercedes is going to be a real frustration for him, I think.
Yes, and I mean the potential of the car we are seeing with the lead car just really running away from the field at will, no pressure, and just running the laps, 1 minute 40.9, whatever. I mean, Steph Dusseldorp is just doing what he wants to do. The tragedy for Alvaro Parent is he can't yet find a way past, because he knows the pace of his car would match that of the lead car. But that's what happens in motor racing. It was much easier yesterday when both the McLarens took first and second. Today it's been a relatively easy victory in spite of the difficulty at the restart for the number one car. But Alvaro Parent, who I thought when he got into the car had been given it to him by Gregoire de Moussier, he would have literally just rushed up to the tail of the sister car and made it a double 1-2 for McLaren.
Penultimate lap of the race started for Steph Dusseldorp, and he is going to surely take this win with only a couple of laps remaining. It's been a commanding performance from him. Here is this battle we've watched about to unfold for the second half of this race, but it never really has, because Parent is unable to get the job done to get past Thomas Jaeger, and this will be a great result for the two Al Inkle cars. And the Al Inkle squad have mixed feelings about this season, because they've done well, they've got good results, but it's been not due to necessarily the car's outright pace. They still feel like they're struggling with the car, struggling to get the best pace out of the car, but it's their teamwork that has given them such good positions.
Well, this battle for third place is still going on. Alvaro Parent looked very threatening coming into turn 5, but hasn't been able to maintain that close contact out of turn 8 down the hill to turn 9. So it looks pretty much there's going to be a victory for McLaren, but not a second podium.
No, it doesn't look like it will be the 1-2 that many expected this weekend, especially after the first free practice session where they topped the times in both sessions and took a 1-2 in the first session. So it really hasn't quite worked out for that number 2 McLaren. That brilliant pit stop from Al Inkle, the average pit stop from Hexis, is where they've struggled. Out of the final comes Steph Dusseldorp, and he is going to start the final lap of the third round of the championship here at Navarra. Across the line he comes. He's still lapping, well, 1 minute 41.3. He has backed off now, but him backing off is still a tenth of a second quicker than Winkelhock and Jaeger going at it. Alvaro Parent starts the final lap. This has got to be his last chance to try and make a move and to try and get 2 McLarens on the podium. I don't really know where he's going to do it. Here we've got Frank Stippler having a nice little scrap, and Mike Parisi's round. Mike Parisi must, I would suggest, have been given some helping hand from Laurens Vanthoor.
Somebody may have dived down the inside, and we'll hopefully get a review of that one as well as we go back to this battle for the final podium position. And Alvaro Parent close now, coming down into turn 5. He needs to get the McLaren alongside, and no, he has to back out of it. He's not able to maintain the...
Oh, has a little late look at the inside,
second breath almost, and sort of thought about it again, but couldn't get the job done, and if he had done it, it would be difficult to make it stick.
And I wonder if that's compromising for the remainder of the lap. That little half-hearted look has allowed the Mercedes to pull out a couple of car lengths, so I would suggest that is going to be our second, third, fourth and 5th positions you can see in shot there. Then with 6th place further back, Nicky Meyer-Melnhof. Still, Albert von Taxis lapping quicker than Nicky Meyer-Melnhof, which is pretty impressive. But into turn 13 comes the Hexis #1 McLaren, Stef Dusseldorp at the wheel. Fred McAvicky took the start. He absolutely rocketed away. Stef Dusseldorp did all the hard work yesterday, went from the back of the grid up to 2nd by the end of his stint in the qualifying race, and he is going to see the checker flag. He's going to see Fred McAvicky hanging over the pit wall, and the checker flag falls in the 3rd round of the GT1 World Championship. The championship race win taken by Hexis McLaren, Dusseldorp and Fred McAvicky. Here comes the 2nd, 3rd and 4th place cars. Lights are flashing for Marcus Fingerlock and Mark Basseng as they cross the line. Absolute delight for Mark Basseng, 2nd and 3rd places. 4th place going the way of the 2nd McLaren. Disappointment there, no doubt. Jelmer Berman across the line for 5th and 6th, the BMWs. There's still a bit of sorting out to do down here. Is this going to be Laurens Vanthoor sending one up the inside into the final corner? He's challenging Philippe Salaquada. Gets the cutback, gets a decent enough drive. We go on board, tries to make it a photo finish. He hasn't got the straight line speed, and he has to settle for what is 10th position in the end, so he gets a solitary point. Stippler in 8th, Salaquada in 9th, Vanthoor 10th, Ide 11th. That incident between Mike Parisi and Laurens Vanthoor is under investigation from the stewards. Parisi in 12th, Sergei Afanasiev in 13th place, Albert von Taxis with some quick laps actually, finishing in 14th place. Dino Lenardi in the Porsche in 15th position. Leo Machitsky had to end the race, as did Matteo Cressoni. Let's speak to Philippe Dumas down in the pit lane with Haley.
Philippe, congratulations. 2 wins this weekend for Hexis and now 2 wins for the MP412C.
It's the first international race for the McLaren, and I'm really happy to give this present for McLaren. You know, my little daughter asked me beginning of the week to come back with a trophy. Mission done. I'm happy, really happy for the team.
Thank you.
Fantastic stuff, Philippe Dumas, who I imagine has probably aged a couple of years in the opening months of this season, because they've had real teething troubles with the McLaren as they get used to it. But
yeah, I mean, it's been a struggle, but what we've seen this weekend is the real potential of this car. And, you know, again, the whole series is based on the balance of performance, and I'm sure there'll be a few other representatives of their manufacturers who will be saying this car needs to be reined back. My view is bring everybody else up to the level of the McLaren, but that's an issue for the FIA, who are the arbiters of the balance of performance and how they determine what will happen in the future.
So the fans here at Navarra have enjoyed a decent championship race. It didn't quite bring us the crazy excitement of the qualifying race yesterday, but a fascinating race out there, and we really got to see the true pace of some of the cars, some true tactical battles as well as some decent on-track action. And the first dry race of 2012 has given us a McLaren win with a Alinkel.com Munich Motorsports Mercedes 2nd and 3rd. So pulling into the first place slot for the championship race goes the McLaren. 2nd on the right there, Mark Basseng and Marcus Finkelhock. 3rd on the left, you see pulling in Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli. Alinkel took a 1-2 in the championship race last year, a 2-3 this year. Very, very impressive performance from them. The hug between Stef Dusseldorp and Fred McAvicky. Absolute delight between the Frenchman and the Dutchman.
I tell you, I'd say to Stef Dusseldorp, be a bit more careful when you slam that door. Replacement's about £20,000.
The team delighted with how that has transpired as well. So we will have the podium presentation in a few moments. We'll hear from our winning drivers once Stef Dusseldorp has taken his helmet off. And
well, that was a very easy run for Stef Dusseldorp. The car returned after a rather frightening moment when it wouldn't start.
Yeah.
Once he was back on track, he had clear racetrack ahead of him. He just had to focus on extending the advantage over the second place Mercedes-Benz, and he was doing it consistently by a second a lap. And well, real joy indeed for the two McLaren MP412C drivers. Double victories here this weekend.
Well, why don't we hear from our race winners, Fred McAvicky and Stef Dusseldorp. They're down in Parc Fermé. Haley Coxon's got the microphone.
Steph, congratulations. The McLaren is certainly showing its form now.
Yeah, we had again a really good day. Fred did a perfect start and he managed to make a nice gap. It's good he had a nice gap because we had some troubles in the pit stop. Engine is really hard to start in this condition, so yeah, it took some more time, but luckily the gap was big enough to maintain the lead, and then it was just push a few laps and control the race.
Looking positive for the rest of the season now for you, Fred.
Yeah, now we start really the championship for us, and we hope so that we arrive to be really performant on the rest of the season. I'm confident.
Thank you.
Very confident and very smiley, Fred Makovicky. It's great to see them win. Fred Makovicky's last race in GT1, last race win in GT1 coming in Ordos, I think, when he was in the Mark VDS Ford last year.
It's not true his nickname is Carl Colgate, is it?
I don't know about that.
That smile,
yeah,
blind
exactly.
you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Delight, and I mean, it's wonderful to see drivers when they've achieved a goal, and particularly for the McLaren drivers who've struggled in the first 2 rounds with difficulties getting the car to run competitively and reliably. Well, it's all worked for them here in Navarra, a circuit that they do, as we've pointed out earlier, they do test at, and if anywhere is going to be a circuit where they should be successful, it's got to be here in Spain.
Let's hear from our second place men, Mark Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock.
Mark, you've got to be happy with this result here this weekend.
Yeah, it's unbelievable as a driver, as a team manager. The team did an awesome job at the pit stop. I think that was our advantage to the others. I don't know how Thomas managed to keep Parenti behind him, but second and third is absolutely the maximum we could achieve today.
And Marcus, you certainly weren't expecting this coming into this weekend, were you?
No, not really, especially after the free practice. We were struggling a bit. So I thought it's going to be a really difficult weekend, and for sure I didn't expect the podium. So I'm really happy about the result. I told Mark already, last weekend we had P12 before in the 24-hour race and we won. So I thought P12 in qualifying maybe is not too bad, and it was.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Mark Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock, who won the 24-hour of Nürburgring last time out, or last weekend, I should say. So it's turning into a pretty successful couple of weeks for them. Let's hear from our third place men then. Thomas Jaeger doing a great job to hold off that charging McLaren. Him and Nicky Pastorelli are down with Haley Coxon in Parc Fermé.
Congratulations, guys. Thomas, how did you fend off that McLaren?
Yeah, it was really difficult because we were quite slow at the straight, so I had to pay attention, especially in turn 1 on the brakes, because my rear was really loose. But finally I could make it. Thank you to the team. The car was great. In the free practice it didn't look like we are competitive, and now we are 2 and 3, so it's a great weekend for us.
Nicky, congratulations. Looking at the times going into this race, we didn't think you'd have an advantage over the McLaren, but here you are on the podium.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy about it. I mean, we did a great job for the team, scored the maximum points we could, being not quick enough, still finishing second and third, thanks to being quickest in the pit stops finally. So really good job from everybody in the team.
Thank you.
Free practice too. You have a chat with them and they're like, oh, it's not really going to work out for us this weekend. It's not going well. But they're still getting used to this Mercedes, and they find the pace by the championship race.
We watched practices on Saturday, and the car, frankly, up at turn 2 and 3 looked a handful. Yeah. In fact, they tore up so much of the green. You can just see on the outside of the corner that AstroTurf. They shredded that, and now they got the car to work, handled much better in the race.
Here's a look at the results. Fred Makovicky winning the race alongside Steph Dusseldorp. The 2 Munich Motorsport Mercedes coming home in second and third. The McLaren of Alvaro Parent and Gregoire de Moustier finishing in fourth. Then it was the 2 BMW Z4s of Team Vita for One Racing. Michael Bartels finishing ahead of Matthias Lauda and Nicky Melnoff after a little bit of team interchanging. Peter Cox and Darrell Young weren't quite able to capitalise on the advantage of the Lamborghini this weekend. They finished down in 7th place. Then the first of the Audis, Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler. The first of the Ferraris as well. I thought the Ferraris would be strong in the dry conditions, but 10th place was only as good as Tony Bolander and Philippe Salaquada could manage. The Aston Martin of Andres Zuber and Sergei Afanasyev finished in 13th place. Albert von Turnen Taxis had a drive-through penalty, so ended up in 14th. Dino Lunardi had to recover after a spin from Benjamin Arish. Maxime Martin and Leo Machitsky retired, as did Matteo Cressoni and Milos Pavlovic, despite an impressive weekend. The incident between cars 9 and 32, Lawrence Vanthor and Mike Parisi, which we saw earlier on, no further action will be taken.
Well, we didn't actually see it, we just saw the consequence of it, but obviously it was considered by the race stewards to be a motor racing incident, and so therefore there was no one of the two drivers involved that was perceived to be the guilty party.
So we will soon have the podium presentation for our top three drivers, well, top 6 drivers, top 3 teams. Out onto the top step of the podium, Steph Dusseldorp, followed by Fred Makovicky. The crowd cheer and they climb onto the top step. Second place going the way of Marc Basseng and Marcus Wengelhock. Absolutely delighted with that performance. They congratulate the McLarens, and Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli climb onto the third step of the podium. A 1-2 last year for Al Inkel Munich Motorsports. It's a 2-3 this year because they could not compete with the French Hexis Racing McLaren team. Steph Dusseldorp and Fred Makovicky taking the victory. So congratulations to the 2 winning drivers, Steph Dusseldorp and Fred Makovicky. We'll have a look at how this all affects the championship before too long, because our championship leaders, Stefano Telli and Lawrence Vanthor, picking up just 1 point from today. There's the managing director of the Navarra circuit here, handing the trophies to the third place men, Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli. On what is a very warm day here in Navarra, Francisco Javier Sanz, sporting director of the RFEDA, handing the trophies for second place. Marc Basseng absolutely delighted with that. And the race-winning trophies, the Hexis McLaren start to chant, because here come the trophies. Roberto Jimenez, the vice president of Navarra, hands them the trophies, and the Hexis crew, I can see down in the pit lane there, you can see them at the bottom of the screen, going absolutely berserk after taking the championship win. The win yesterday in the qualifying race was one thing, but the full-on championship race win is another.
Yeah, and it was, in relative terms, easy for Steph Dusseldorp and Fred Makovicky. A little bit more disappointing, in fact, for the second car of Albero Parent and Dumbuzier. They had to battle all the way. They lost ground to the 2 Al Inkel Mercedes-Benz, who did a strong team job, and a great effort by Marc Basseng and everybody within Mercedes to bring those 2 cars onto the podium.
Yeah, great stuff, and there you can see them holding their trophies aloft. Well, the next round of the championship is 2 weeks' time in the Slovakia ring, just outside of Bratislava. Will we see a similar story of Hexis domination, or will the other cars be able to find a little bit more speed? Al Inkel will certainly be hoping that they can repeat this kind of performance. And there's a lot of teams that have pace, but we haven't heard from yet. The likes of the BMW, the likes of the Lamborghini. Here's the championship points. Steph Dusseldorp, Fred Makovicky, Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli tied on points at the top of the championship. They're only 4 points clear of Ortelli and Vanthor. They're only 1 point clear of Bartels and Berman. They're only 2 points clear of Marc Basseng and Marcus Wengelhock. It's fantastically close at the top of the standings.
Balance of performance, thank you very much.
Here's the team's championship. Al Inkel moved to the top of the championship now. Hexis Racing finally sorting themselves out, up to second place. Let's have a look then. It was the McLarens flying away into the lead of the race, for which they, well, the lead car anyway of Fred Makovicky wouldn't be touched. They all got safely through the first few corners. Peter Cox getting biffed a little bit and sent further down the field. We had some great dicing, the Porsche having a particularly strong straight line speed advantage as Matt Halliday made his way past. The pit stop window was where it all changed.
Yeah, great pit stops by the Al Inkel team, got them in, but more importantly out, and they split there for the 2 McLarens, and that was the signal of the McLarens. Alvaro Perrin taking over from Gregoire de Muzier, and that's how it remained.
So then they managed to get past the BMW of Nicky Meyer-Melnhof, who started to slide a little bit backwards. There was some great dicing further back. Mike Parisi ran wide, which allowed Laurence Vanthor to come through. Vanthor then made his move past the Ferrari as well. But Mike Parisi, coming down the start straight, absolutely rapid and slid past both of them into turn one.
Yeah.
Luckily, the Audi hung on around the outside.
The Audi hung around the outside, but it hung around so far it actually got onto the dirty bit of the exit of the corner and went into it a long slide as we saw the two BMWs interacting between each other, letting the quicker car of Jelmer Bowman get through, and ultimately he was put on a challenge to Alvaro Parent in the closing laps.
But no one could stop the Hexus McLaren. We're back in 2 weeks' time in Slovakia Ring. We'll see you then. Thank you very much for joining us this weekend.